Chapter 1. Heavenly Dream Dynasty, Bluestone City. The Qin clan was one of the overlords of the city. The Qin clan was decorated magnificently. At this moment, it was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Guests had arrived. It was a joyous scene. Today was the wedding day of the third mistress of the Qin clan, Qin Yueshuang, and the son of the city lord, Tang Ao. As the union of the two major forces of the city, it attracted the attention of countless people. However, the atmosphere in the inner hall of the Qin clan was somewhat depressing. A young man in a festive red outfit looked guilty. He looked at the beautiful woman in front of him apologetically. The beautiful woman's body trembled slightly, but she quickly regained her calmness. Her bright eyes and white teeth showed no signs of abnormality. The head of the Qin clan, Qin Wudao, was furious. He clenched his teeth and said, "Nephew, repeat what you just said." Although it was rude, Tang Ao still said apologetically, "Uncle, this marriage, I can't do it." Everyone was speechless. Qin Wudao was furious. His face turned green. The Qin clan members were furious. They stared at Tang Ao fiercely. "You want to break off the marriage?" The beautiful woman said. "I'm sorry." Tang Ao looked at the woman he broke off the marriage and mumbled, "If there is anything I can do to make it up to you, please tell me. I will do it." "What are you going to give me?" Qin Wudao sneered. His eyes were filled with anger. He said hatefully, "Tang Ao, you think too highly of yourself." Tang Ao was silent for a while before a guilty look appeared on his face. However, his eyes were filled with determination. He couldn't get married because at this moment, his heart was filled with love. That woman was waiting for him. For her, Tang Ao was willing to be a shameless person, even if he had to bear the infamy of being cursed for thousands of years. "If you want to break off the marriage, I agree." After a long time, Qin Yueshuang said indifferently. She seemed to be relieved. She said calmly, "Show me your sincerity." "I'm sorry. As compensation, I am willing to—" Before Tang Ao could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by the young girl's voice. "I want the Tang clan's destiny stone. Give it to me, and I'll write it off." The Heaven's Mandate Stone was an important treasure of the Tang clan. It was rumored to be a divine stone that fell from the ninth heaven. It had the ability to defy the heavens and change one's fate. It was priceless. "I've already brought it." Tang Ao nodded his head. He had the same intention. To this woman, the most precious thing he could think of as compensation was this item. Tang Ao took out a glowing stone from his pocket, attracting everyone's attention. Everyone's breathing quickened as they stared at the divine stone. "Forget it. A melon that is forcefully picked won't be sweet." "Dear nephew, you've really disappointed me." Qin Wudao seemed to have deflated as he slumped into his chair with a sorrowful expression. Tang Ao handed over the Heaven's Mandate Stone and was still apologetic. He murmured to the girl, "I wish you all the best. May you find your ideal husband in the future." After sending Tang Ao off with his eyes, Qin Wudao waved his hands and dismissed everyone in the room. There would naturally be someone to handle the matter of the engagement today, sending the guests away and also explaining the reason why the son of the city lord had come to cancel the engagement. "You heir, this is a brilliant plan. It's a pity that you've been implicated by that brat." After a long time, Qin Wudao, who was slumped in his chair, suddenly sat up. His eyes flashed with excitement as he stared at the divine stone in Qin Yueshuang's hand. "It's fine." Qin Yueshuang raised an eyebrow, but her eyes remained calm as she spoke. "With the Destiny Stone, your daughter will be able to awaken the crepe myrtle Tao physique. From then on, he and I will be like heaven and earth." That's right, that brat thought he had found the love of his life. He didn't know that this was all a trap set up by our Qin clan. Qin Wudao's eyes turned cold as he said excitedly, "Daughter, quickly merge with the Destiny Stone. Once you succeed, even if that old man Tang Zhan returns, he won't be able to do anything to our Qin clan. Although I've lost the Destiny Stone, I don't think my father will blame me when he returns. After all, I found a better wife for my son." When Tang Ao returned to the city lord's mansion, his face was relaxed and happy. He couldn't wait to change out of the groom's robe. Behind him, the housekeeper, Uncle Fu, had a bitter expression as he asked anxiously, "Young master, what should we do now? Be cursed by the world? I don't care." Tang Ao knew that the old man was referring to him breaking the engagement and abandoning the daughter of the Qin clan. However, he didn't care. After a chuckle, he turned around and left the city lord's mansion, heading toward the manor in the northern suburbs. Ru'er must be waiting anxiously. She still doesn't know that I've made this decision. When she sees me later, she'll be pleasantly surprised. Tang Ao's eyes revealed a gentle smile as his heart was filled with anticipation. Very soon, he arrived at the manor in the northern suburbs. Tang Ao walked straight in, but the manor was extremely strange. There wasn't a single servant or guard. Anxious, Tang Ao barged into Ru'er's room in a hurry. "Ru'er, where are you?" he shouted, but when he saw the empty room, he suddenly froze. A trace of panic emerged in his heart for no reason. Tang Ao looked anxious and continued to search, but he couldn't find a single person. Finally, Tang Ao found some clues in Ru'er's room. All the clothes in the wardrobe were gone, and the gold, silver, and jewelry were also cleaned up. Looking at the situation, it seemed that the owner of the house had packed her luggage and left. Ru'er left. Tang Ao's expression stiffened, and he suddenly screamed, "No, this is impossible." After an unknown period of time, Tang Ao returned to the city lord's mansion in a daze. A day later, news came from Bluestone City that the city lord's son, Tang Ao, had abandoned the daughter of the Qin clan, Qin Yueshuang, who was about to marry him. For a time, countless people cursed Tang Ao, accusing him of being a man. A few days later, the butler, Uncle Fu, walked in with a strange expression and bowed. "Young master, someone said that they saw Miss Ru at the frontier fortress. She was followed by the Qin clan's guards. It didn't seem like they were coercing her, but more like protecting her." This matter seems to be related to the Qin clan. After a long time, Uncle Fu told him a truth that made his heart beat faster. Bang! Tang Ao turned his head and looked at the manor in the northern suburbs. He didn't believe it, and he wanted to follow the clues. When he arrived at the manor in the northern suburbs, Tang Ao rushed in. Suddenly, his footsteps stopped as he saw a familiar figure standing in the manor. Qin Yueshuang raised her head. Her long black hair shone with a holy light under the sunlight, like a fairy from heaven. Her flawless cheeks were breathtakingly beautiful. "You took Ru'er away." Tang Ao stopped his footsteps. "You still don't understand?" Qin Yueshuang suddenly said. "Your meeting with Ru'er was a trap." Qin Yueshuang sneered. Her sleeves fluttered as she walked over and said quietly, "I didn't expect you to be so infatuated. TSK, you think I like you? You're just a mortal with no talent. Why should I marry you? The Destiny Stone is a supreme treasure. Your Tang clan doesn't know much about it. It's because the Destiny Stone can help me communicate with the mandate of heaven and help me achieve the Violet Myrtle Dao physique. Ever since I learned about the existence of the Destiny Stone, I've been plotting how to take it from your Tang clan." Qin Yueshuang's words were like thunder, exploding Tang Ao on the spot. "You're too stupid. A random servant girl made you fall head over heels for me. Haha, if it weren't for the Qin clan's reputation, I would have kicked you out long ago. After all, you and I are destined to be people from different worlds. But it's fine now. That girl has made you fall head over heels for her. She's willing to bear the infamy and asked me to break off the engagement and compensate the Qin clan. You can go. I told you the truth just to make you give up. The person you love is just a pawn of mine. Live on as a mortal for the rest of your life." Qin Yueshuang glanced at Tang Ao indifferently. Her expression was cold as she floated away. Tang Ao was the only one left standing there. A mortal with no talent. "Ru'er, why are you like this?" Tang Ao murmured. His expression wasn't one of sadness, despair, or bitterness. At this moment, Tang Ao's mind flashed with memories from a long time ago. 10,000 years ago, he turned into an invincible demon and ran amok in the three realms. But in the end, he was defeated. He was defeated by himself. A lifetime of invincibility, a lifetime of loneliness. He died alone. In this life, when he opened his eyes, Tang Ao realized that he still had the memories of his previous life. When he was 10 years old, he made a decision. In his previous life, cultivation was cruel. He had had enough of the life of a knife. So in this life, he wanted to be immortal and live an ordinary life. When he met Ru'er, Tang Ao felt that his life's wish was fulfilled. But who would have thought that all of this was just an illusion? Haha, mortal! Tang Ao smiled, but there was no trace of sadness or pain on his face. Then it turned into endless laughter. His words were cold, and he spoke slowly. Evil heaven, you don't want me to be ordinary? Forget it. Since that's the case, I will no longer be ordinary. Seal release. Tang Ao's eyes suddenly turned cold. He chanted a mantra and formed a seal with both hands. Suddenly, there was a violent surge of spiritual energy. Countless spiritual energy gathered and drilled into Tang Ao's body. The people of Bluestone City all knew that Tang Ao, the son of the city lord, had tested his life spirit at the age of 12. In the end, he found nothing and concluded that he could not practice martial arts in this life. But no one knew that it was not that Tang Ao could not practice, but that he had sealed himself. Even his aptitude was unique. Hidden jade in stone body. Hidden jade in stone body. Its brilliance was restrained. Chapter 2. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered around Lei Ming, and the wind and clouds changed color. The first seal broke. The second seal broke. The third seal broke. In an instant, Tang Ao's face was filled with pain, but he gritted his teeth and persevered. After a flash of golden light, Tang Ao broke all the seals. At this moment, spiritual energy flowed through his meridians, and his body recovered to its most perfect state. In the end, I still have to set foot on this path again. Tang Ao opened his eyes, and there was a trace of complicated emotions in them. In the end, he shook his head and glanced at the manor in the northern suburbs. At this moment, his aura turned into an endless cold hell. The demon of the past had returned. Without any reluctance, Tang Ao found a fire starter and set it on fire. The manor behind him became a sea of fire. After watching for a long time, Tang Ao only turned around and walked towards the city lord's manor after the entire manor was burned to ruins. As soon as he entered the manor, Uncle Fu hurriedly came out to greet him. Young master. Uncle Fu's face was filled with concern and anxiety. His master was fighting in the foreign battlefields, and he was in charge of everything in the manor. If anything happened to the young master, he couldn't absolve himself from the blame. I'm fine. Tang Ao waved his hand tiredly. He glanced at the city lord's manor and saw many unfamiliar faces staring at the manor. They're spies sent by the Qin manor. Uncle Fu smiled bitterly. Vaguely, Tang Ao could hear some commoners who were passing by the city lord's mansion, criticizing and mocking. Our city lord's son is really disgusting. Not only is he a cripple, he actually abandoned a beautiful woman. Who's he think he is? The Qin family's lady is pitiful. She's a proud daughter of heaven, and she was willing to marry him. But in the end, this brat doesn't even like her. I heard he has a mistress who was bewitched, and that's why he did such a heartless thing. Bah, why doesn't he take a piss and look at himself? Uncle Fu was also a martial artist, and his hearing was sharp. He was about to explode on the spot, but Tang Ao stopped him and said indifferently, "It's fine." Then he turned and left. Uncle Fu sighed. He still didn't know that Tang Ao had compensated the Destiny Stone to the Qin Manor. If he knew, he would probably faint from the heartache. Returning to his room, Tang Ao couldn't wait to cultivate. In the black-yellow continent, everyone advocated the martial Tao. By sensing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, they would be able to break through their shackles and step into the martial Tao realm. If a martial artist was fated, they could comprehend their life's soul and communicate with the mysterious existences of the boundless universe, such as the power of the stars between heaven and earth, the flowers and trees in nature, and even communicate with ancient birds and beasts to condense a life soul. From then on, they would be qualified to become stronger. This was because only by awakening a life soul could one break the most crucial shackles of a martial artist soul, constantly increase their strength, temper their body, and shape their primordial spirit. Then, they would awaken more life souls and obtain all sorts of extraordinary abilities. Rumor had it that there were geniuses who could awaken 3,000 fate souls, each of which represented a different type of talent and divine abilities. Once all of them were pushed to the limit, they could fuse into one and form an immortal godhood. However, it was too difficult to awaken the destiny soul. If a mortal could awaken one destiny soul, he could step into the martial artist realm. If he wanted to awaken the second or third destiny soul, he needed to work hard and have all kinds of opportunities. But at this moment, it was easy for Tang Ao to awaken the destiny soul. In his previous life, he was the titled demon venerable and awakened more than 1,800 destiny souls. Cultivating again in this life, Tang Ao easily entered a meditative state. His mind was calm, and he kept his spirit and qi. His soul seemed to leave his body at this moment and slowly floated. At first, there was some obstruction, as if there was a layer of invisible airflow blocking him. This was the first stage of awakening the destiny soul, the heavenly Tao imprisonment, because all living beings were humble and equal in front of the heavenly Tao. To break through the heavenly Tao imprisonment, it was a test of one's willpower. If one's willpower was weak, he couldn't break through the shackles of heaven and earth and enter the world where the destiny soul was, which was the boundless world. The boundless world, in other words, was the universe. From ancient times until now, it was called the universe. The existence of the boundless world was like the coexistence of countless space-time planes. It was like an illusory country, but it was a real existence. Tang Ao's soul was very strong. This ability was innate. From the moment he was born, he had the memories of his previous life as a demon venerable. He was destined to be extraordinary. As for willpower, he did not lack it. No matter how difficult the battle was, he had survived it. Right now, he was just trying to break through the shackles of the heavenly Tao. Tang Ao closed his eyes. There was no need to think too much. The memories of his previous life surged, and a sharp aura burst forth from his body. In an instant, the shackles of the heavenly Tao collapsed. Very quickly, Tang Ao felt his soul floating into a chaotic space. This was the Great Thousand World. Long time no see. Murmuring, Tang Ao seemed to look up at the world, and his heart was filled with emotions. Even the gods and demons were insignificant in the boundless world. This was because there were sky rocks that were tens of thousands of miles long, mountains that stretched across the continent, giant trees that connected heaven and earth, seas and the mountains, the moon and the sea, and all kinds of strange and dazzling existences. A little beast. Immediately, Tang Ao sensed the space not far away. A little beast was crying piteously, waiting to be fed. Its body emitted a weak power. It was just an ordinary beast. Blue Lotus. If I can awaken the Blue Lotus soul, I can obtain Lotus True Chi and increase my attack power. Rhodiola, Peony, they're all nature elemental life souls. Tang Ao murmured. At this moment, as long as he was willing, he could communicate with these species and awaken the corresponding life souls. However, Tang Ao didn't do so. His soul continued to float into the depths of the boundless world, crossing the first heaven and arriving at the second heaven. In the boundless world, there were a total of 36 heavens. The higher the level, the more magical and powerful the life souls. After entering the second heaven, the pressure from the space increased, but Tang Ao didn't feel uncomfortable at all. He continued to float toward the third heaven. The third heaven, the fourth heaven, the fifth heaven. When he reached the fifth heaven, Tang Ao finally stopped. At this moment, he finally felt a heavy sense of restraint that made his soul tremble, as if it was about to split open. However, Tang Ao still gritted his teeth and persevered. His cultivation was still too weak. Otherwise, with his Tao heart, he could definitely break into the ninth heaven and above. But even so, Tang Ao reached the fifth heaven the first time he entered the boundless world. If the news spread, it would definitely shock countless people. Got it. At this moment, Tang Ao's eyes lit up. He sensed a strange power. There was an aura of death coming from there, and it was filled with the strong smell of blood. Hey, this is... Tang Ao's soul floated over. At a glance, he saw a blood-stained spear lying quietly on the rotten ground. This spear seemed to have experienced ancient times, exuding a domineering and terrifying killing intent. 100 Battle Spear Soul. With Tang Ao's knowledge, he quickly recognized the information of this life soul. It was a type of weapon-type life soul. This spear must have been stained with countless blood. You're the one. Tang Ao nodded. His soul completely floated over and comprehended this blood-stained spear. The spear's blade emitted a domineering and bloodthirsty aura, which made people tremble with fear. However, it was useless against Tang Ao. He was a demon lord, so how could he be scared by a small spear? Rays of blood-colored light shot out from the spear and entered Tang Ao's soul. Even his physical body, in reality, felt a tearing pain. Roar! After an unknown period of time, Tang Ao's soul returned to his body. He slowly opened his eyes and couldn't help but let out a low roar. At the same time, a divine light came from beyond the heavens, descending above Bluestone City before disappearing in a flash. Although the divine light disappeared quickly, it was still captured by many martial artists on the mainland. A crazy, killing intent. The density of this divine light is not weak. At the very least, it came from the fourth heaven. Looking at its direction, it descended towards Bluestone City. Another person has awakened their life soul. This divine light is extraordinary. The person who awakened it must be a genius. Many martial artists murmured in envy, looking in the direction of Bluestone City. Chapter 3. I finally awakened my life spirit. Tang Ao mumbled to himself. He was very calm. He was feeling the power of the 100 Battle Spear's soul. With a thought, an illusory blood spear appeared above his head. It emitted a cold, killing intent and a will to die. If one's willpower was not strong enough, just one look at it would be enough to shake them and make them lose their ability to resist. I have the first life spirit. Next, I should choose a cultivation technique to cultivate, Tang Ao mumbled to himself. He recalled the cultivation techniques he had collected as a demon in his previous life. But at this moment, he felt a burning sensation in his chest. Tang Ao looked down and saw the hexagram mirror around his neck glowing with starlight. This is Tang Ao froze. He recalled the origin of the hexagram mirror. When he was born in this life, he held this mirror in his hand. This hexagram mirror was something Tang Ao had obtained from a miracle in his previous life. He had once guessed that the reason he still had the memories of his previous life after reincarnation was because of this mirror. Just as Tang Ao was still thinking, the hexagram mirror suddenly shone brightly. A string of words flowed into Tang Ao's mind. This caused Tang Ao to freeze in place, his expression one of shock. This is the ancient god moves the sky. This hexagram mirror has actually transmitted a cultivation technique to me. Let me see. What is so special about this cultivation technique? Tang Ao found it unbelievable that this mirror had such an effect. It was funny that he had studied it for hundreds of years in his previous life and learned nothing. But in this life, when he had just started cultivating, he suddenly had a response. After a while, Tang Ao's heartbeat sped up. He revealed a look of excitement and mumbled, "What a powerful cultivation technique. This is actually an ancient god's cultivation technique. No wonder it is called the sky moves. When cultivated to the extreme, even the sky can be moved. What kind of mystique is this?" The ancient god moves the sky had a total of 7 levels, which corresponded to the 7 realms of martial arts. The first level of the sky moves was about moving chi and blood, which corresponded to the body refining realm. In other words, through breathing, one could control the chi and blood as they pleased, forming the initial power of a martial artist. The second level was about moving life force, which corresponded to the yuan martial realm. In this realm, a martial artist could move all kinds of life force in the world, communicate with more life spirits, and use all kinds of abilities. The third level was about moving potential, which corresponded to the sea of souls realm. It could increase one's potential in a short period of time or release one's body, increasing one battling power for a certain period. The fourth level was about moving lifespan, which corresponded to the life and death realm. And the life realm corresponded to the fourth level, which corresponded to the realm. The fifth level, moving the soul, corresponded to the astral reaching realm. As the name suggested, martial artists at this level would be able to leave their bodies. Even in one-star region, they would be considered a top existence. The fourth level was about moving life, which corresponded to the realm. The realm, which corresponded to the realm. How did it? The heaven. The realm, which corresponded. The seventh level was about moving heaven, which corresponded to the realm of moving heaven. Once a martial artist reached this realm, he would be like a real earth immortal. His lifespan would reach 5,000 years, and he could even change his fate. All right, I will train this ancient god moves the sky art. Let's see how far I can grow in this life. Since he had decided to train, Tang Ao would fight for it. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he started to train the ancient god moves the sky. One day later, Tang Ao walked out of his room. Right then, his whole body was full of chi and blood. He had already reached the first level of body refining. If he added the experience from his previous life and the 100 battle spear spirit, Tang Ao would have the guts to fight against a second or even a third level of body refining. Young master, you finally came out. Uncle Fu was waiting outside the door. When he saw Tang Ao finally appear, he was relieved. He thought that the young master couldn't think things through and was hiding in the room. Young master, that slut. Sigh, there are so many women in the world. There is no need for young master to... Uncle Fu consoled. But before he could finish, Tang Ao interrupted him. He smiled and said, Uncle Fu, I am fine. You don't have to worry about me. As for Ru'er, forget it. Although she is Qin Yueshuan's woman, I will not hate her. I will let this matter rest, and I will not think about her in the future. At this point, Tang Ao slightly released his aura. A different aura emerged from his body. Uncle Fu stared blankly for a moment, then became stupefied. In the end, he let out an excited roar. Young master, you can practice martial arts now? Yes, Uncle Fu. I have broken through to the first level of body refining. I have also comprehended my own fate soul. Tang Ao smiled. That's great, that's great. Master will be very happy when he returns. Uncle Fu was so excited that he cried. He seemed to be a little nervous and hurriedly asked, Young master, I wonder what level of heaven you have sensed when you have just awakened your fate soul. The third level. Tang Ao did not reveal the truth that he had comprehended the fifth level of heaven's fate soul. That would be too shocking. The third level. Uncle Fu was delighted and said excitedly, Young master is indeed the son of master. Ahem, that's right. Young master, you can't casually sense fate souls. Some fate souls are not strong. If you communicate with them, they will become useless, and your martial path will stop there. After all, to awaken a second fate soul requires extraordinary talent. Hearing Uncle Fu's explanation, Tang Ao had a playful expression. He smiled and asked, Uncle Fu, what kind of fate soul do you think is best? There are all kinds of fate souls in the world. Some are strong, and some are weak. Uncle Fu thought that Tang Ao did not know anything and hurriedly explained, The best is naturally to awaken an ancient beast soul and obtain the bloodline magical power of an ancient beast. You can easily swallow the sun and the moon, or you can use the mountain soul to transform into a mountain that is as immovable as a mountain. It can give you a terrifying defense. There is even the vast green lotus, which is one of the natural fate souls. It has comprehended the true essence of the ancient green lotus and can transform into thousands of sword chi with invincible attack power. There's also the enlightenment Bodhi, which can increase a person's comprehension of martial arts by 100 times. From then on, the efficiency of cultivation will increase at lightning speed. Of course, Tang Ao knew these theories. He had just asked casually. Seeing that Uncle Fu was about to continue, Tang Ao hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Uncle Fu, I'll go out for a while." He left the city lord's mansion as if he was fleeing. Uncle Fu chased after him nervously. "Young master, be careful." Qin Manor. Soon, Tang Ao was nowhere to be seen. Uncle Fu stomped his feet and his expression darkened. "Qin Manor, I hope you don't do anything rash. Otherwise, when master returns, he will definitely teach you a lesson." After leaving the city lord's mansion, Tang Ao went straight to the restaurant. He went up to the second floor and found a seat. Just as he took a sip of wine, many people around him pointed at him. All kinds of mockery and criticism rang out. Tang Ao did not mind and drank calmly. "Tang Ao, you still have the mood to drink and eat here." An unhappy voice rang out with cold mockery. Tang Ao turned his head and his eyes flashed. He recognized the person. It was Qin Yueshuang's younger brother, Qin Xingho. "Humph, you abandoned my sister for a little b asterisk tch, and I heard that the little b asterisk tch ran away? Haha, trash like you should suffer such a fate." Chapter 4. Tang Ao's heart was as clear as a mirror. He knew that the other party was stirring up trouble for no reason. It could be said that Tang Ao's annulment of the engagement was a trap set up by the Qin clan. What good scheme. They played him like a fool. If one had to talk about grievances, it was Tang Ao who should be aggrieved. But now that he thought about it, Tang Ao was the unscrupulous disciple on the surface. Qin Yueshuang received the pity of others and even obtained the Destiny Stone. She was the one who benefited the most. Originally, Tang Ao was prepared to swallow this loss. After all, he was the one who proposed the annulment of the engagement. He could not blame anyone but himself. But now that Qin Xingho was deliberately finding fault, the anger in Tang Ao's heart exploded. He was the demon lord. When had he ever been afraid of anyone? Not to mention that despicable woman, Qin Yueshuang, had actually set up such a vicious plot. Thinking of this, Tang Ao's face darkened. He said in a hoarse voice, "Qin Xingho, you know the truth of the matter." Trash. Qin Xingho did not want to shed all pretense of cordiality with Tang Ao. He walked to another table with his group of scoundrels. After ordering wine and dishes, he said in a loud voice, "Everyone, I'm afraid you don't know yet. My sister has received an invitation from the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. She will be specially recruited as a direct disciple." What? It's the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. It's one of the 6 major sects of our continent. They're very powerful. A direct disciple? Oh my God. Qin Yueshuang has such potential. Looks like we'll have to curry favor with the Qin clan in the future. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to that silly boy, Tang Ao. If he did not annul the engagement and let my sister sever the relationship between a man and a woman, she would never have thought of entering a sect to cultivate. Qin Xingho took a sip of wine under the flattery of the crowd. He purposely glanced at Tang Ao. "By the way, you guys don't know yet, right? Tang Ao gave the Destiny Stone to my sister as compensation for her reputation." "Wow, what's a Heaven's Mandate Stone?" "My sister is the daughter of a noble family. If it wasn't for my sister desperately stopping her out of consideration for the city lord, I would have sent that piece of trash flying with a slap." Qin Xingho sneered. "Yeah, he's such a bully. Immoral. This guy is a disgrace to us men." The group of underlings chuckled in agreement and even deliberately glanced in Tang Ao's direction. Tang Ao could not hold it in any longer. He slammed the table fiercely and glared at Qin Xingho. He enunciated each word clearly. "Qin Xingho, I have truly experienced the face of your Qin family. Your sister did not care about her reputation of chastity to steal our Tang family's Destiny Stone. Isn't it just a Destiny Stone? She wants to condense the violet tenuity Dao physique. It's fine, I'll give it to her. But don't forget, I was the one who broke off the engagement. To put it bluntly, Your sister is now a used shoe. Why did I break off the engagement? Because I don't like her. Everyone was dumbfounded by his words. He actually called the number one beauty of Limestone City, Qin Yueshuang, a used shoe. This Tang Ao was too arrogant, but it seemed like it was true. After all, the one who broke off the engagement was the Qin family. Of course, they did not know the conspiracy. For a moment, everyone looked at each other. Qin Xingho was enraged. His face darkened as he roared. Tang Ao, don't think that I won't dare to touch you just because you're the city lord's son. You're just a piece of trash, and you dare to say bad things about the Qin family? Looks like you're itching for a beating. His eyes were burning with killing intent. Qin Xingho flicked his finger, and a pair of chopsticks shot towards Tang Ao's arm like an arrow. This time, he used his true qi. If it was the Tang Ao from before, he would not have been able to block this attack. The sharp chopsticks would have pierced through his arm and injured him. Insignificant skill. Tang Ao was not afraid at all. He raised his right hand, and a continuous stream of qi gushed out. Like moving clouds and flowing water, it easily deflected the chopsticks. Crack! The chopsticks fell to the ground, shocking everyone. He dodged it. Tang Ao, that piece of trash, actually dodged Qin Xingho's fierce attack. Qin Xingho is a second-tier body-tempering martial artist. For a moment, the guests in the restaurant were dumbfounded. They looked at Tang Ao in shock. You've awakened your fate spirit. Qin Xingho jumped and stood up in shock. This is all thanks to your sister. Tang Ao leisurely picked up a mouthful of food with a calm expression. So what if you've awakened your fate spirit and become a martial artist? Qin Xingho's face turned ashen. He said with disdain, My sister is 100 times, 1,000 times better than you. You keep calling me sister. As expected, you're still a brat. Tang Ao laughed coldly. Qin Xingho became mute. Following that, a fierce wave of true qi spread out from his body. In an instant, he went berserk and said, Tang Ao, very good. You've completely angered me. Die. With a loud roar, he pounced over at lightning speed and threw a punch at Tang Ao's head. That's not how fists are used. Tang Ao mocked. He also swung his fist and punched out. Bang! The two fists collided. A heavy, muffled sound suddenly rang out in the restaurant. Following that, a figure let out a blood-curdling scream and flew out of the window, landing heavily on the street on the first floor. On the other side, Tang Ao was still sitting on his chair, leisurely taking a sip of wine. Trash, Tang Ao said indifferently. He turned around and walked out of the restaurant. He paid the bill and left, leaving behind a crowd of shocked onlookers. Walking out of the restaurant, he glanced at Qin Xingho, who was howling on the ground. Half of his face was a bloody mess. Tang Ao said, one word at a time, expressionlessly, You reminded me that the Destiny's Stone belongs to the Tang clan. It won't be that easy for the Qin clan to swallow it. He turned around and walked toward the Qin manor. Not long after, he arrived. There were 2 guards at the gate. Seeing Tang Ao walk over, one of the guards stood out to stop him. He said coldly, Young Master Tang, our master has ordered that you are not welcome in the Qin manor. Scram! Tang Ao's anger was brewing in his heart. He was the demon lord. He had never been toyed with like this. Qin Yueshuang was a vicious woman. He would repay this humiliation 100 times over. Bang, bang, bang. With 2 or 3 punches, the 2 guards of Qin Mansion were sent flying in front of Tang Ao. Both of them vomited blood in midair and finally fell to the ground. How dare you? The commotion outside alerted the people of the Qin manor. Soon, a group of guards rushed out. Qin Wudao received the news. When he heard that it was Tang Ao, he immediately walked out of the Qin manor and stood in front of Tang Ao. Tang Ao, what are you trying to do? His voice was cold, and there was a hint of killing intent in it. Return the Destiny's Stone to me. Tang Ao enunciated each word. Since he had given it away personally, he had to get it back with his own hands. Impossible. Qin Wudao laughed out loud. He sneered and said, Last night, Yuer had already started to merge with the Destiny's Stone. When she comes out of seclusion, she will definitely be bathed in blood. Since that's the case, I can only take her life. Tang Ao's expression was cold. This caused Qin Wudao's expression to freeze. Then he sneered and said, "Nephew Tang Ao, I think you've lost your mind. For your father's sake, I won't argue with you about what happened today." Scram! Tang Ao didn't move. He stood in the same spot and stared at him coldly. "Report, Master. A letter from the Outer Realms." At this moment, a wildebeest galloped over. The rider on the back of the wildebeest had a flushed face and was panting heavily. He handed over a jade talisman with both hands. Qin Wudao took the jade talisman and used his divine sense to check it. Instantly, his face was filled with joy. Inside the jade talisman, there were only 4 words. Tang Zhan is dead. Chapter 5. Mother asterisk her, don't you dare. Tang Ao roared in anger and cursed. Although he didn't know what was inside the jade talisman, he suddenly had a bad feeling about it. Impudent. Qin Wudao glared at him. Being looked down upon by a junior like this made him feel like he had lost all face. He immediately waved his hand and signaled for the guards to move. Suddenly, a shapeless, murderous aura suffused the air. The 20 guards of the Qin clan stepped forward in unison. Each of them held a different weapon in their hands, and their eyes were filled with killing intent as they stared at Tang Ao. Tang Ao was startled. He didn't expect Qin Wudao to have no qualms about killing him. These 20 Qin clan guards were clearly well-trained. Individually, they might not be considered strong. However, if they attacked together, their strength would be astonishing. Chi, a ray of sword light shot out, aiming at the space between Tang Ao's eyebrows. At the same time, the 20 guards moved in unison and surrounded Tang Ao in an instant. Mother asterisk her. Tang Ao cursed loudly. He had a bad feeling about this. Among the 20 guards, 3 had already reached the body refining realm. With the addition of Qin Wudao, who was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey, he had no chance of winning. However, at this moment, it was hard for him to back down. The reason why he dared to come to the Qin clan was because he knew that the Qin clan wouldn't dare to treat him too excessively because of his father's prestige. However, the changes were too sudden and caught him unprepared. Qin Wudao, I will *CK your grandfather. Tang Ao cursed again as he was forced to face the attack. Palm, Chi, blade rays, sword Chi, and palm shadows filled the battlefield in an instant, all attacking Tang Ao at the same time. Facing his opponent's sure-kill techniques, Tang Ao wasn't afraid at all. In an instant, he thought of a countermeasure. He didn't face the attacks head-on. Instead, he tried his best to avoid the attacks of the body refining realm guards and sneakily approach the weaker guards. Pooh! Finally, in a split second, Tang Ao found an opportunity. He raised 2 fingers and a ray of light shot out from his fingertips, instantly piercing through the chest of a guard. Plop! The guard fell to the ground on the spot. His heart had been pierced, and he died a violent death. Before the other guard had the time to be shocked, Tang Ao made another move. Seizing this brief opportunity, he clenched his right fist and punched the person closest to him with all his might. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking was heard, and then the guard was sent flying, landing heavily on the ground. His sternum was completely shattered, and his internal organs were ruptured by the fist energy. If there was no miracle, it was already very good that he could survive. This kind of scene was shocking. Even Qin Wudao, who was ready to attack at any moment, was stunned. He didn't expect such an ending. In his impression, Tang Ao should be immortal. How could he defeat a cultivator? Moreover, this was just the beginning, and he had already lost 2 guards. Get into formation. A guard who seemed to be the leader immediately shouted. The messy team instantly became uniform again. Tang Ao furrowed his brows. He had wanted to disrupt the formation of the Qin clan guards so that he could find a way to escape. However, he didn't expect these people to react so quickly. This is bad. Tang Ao sighed in his heart. He regretted being too impulsive. Kill. The 18 Qin clan guards moved again. This time, they were extremely careful. Only the 3 guards who had already entered the body refining realm were the closest to Tang Ao. The rest of them maintained a distance from him. At the same time, Qin Wudao sneered, "Although I don't know how you managed to cultivate to this stage in just a few days, you will still die." "What do you mean die?" "You old fart, I really regret not sleeping with that *TCH of yours." Tang Ao's words were ruthless. Each and every word he said hit the nail on the head. The smile on Qin Wudao's face froze. Then, his expression turned ferocious as he scolded. "You little bastard! You're about to die, and you still want to win with words. Little bastard? Would you believe me if I told you that I'm older than your grandfather?" Tang Ao raised his guard and taunted Qin Wudao. Looking at Tang Ao's serious expression, Qin Wudao was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. "Good, good, good." His voice trembled as he said the word good 3 times. "Kill him." Qin Wudao roared angrily. Just as he finished speaking, one of the guards was suddenly sent flying. He smashed into a tree in front of the door and spat out a mouthful of blood. "I'm afraid these people aren't enough," Tang Ao said coldly as he looked at Qin Wudao provocatively. He didn't just scold Qin Wudao to win with words. While he was speaking, he was secretly observing the Qin clan's guards. When he saw that one of the guards was momentarily distracted, Tang Ao attacked decisively. He struck a vital point and eliminated another enemy. This was a dramatic scene. "Kill!" The Qin clan's nurses shouted in unison. Seeing that 3 of their training partners had died in a few minutes, their eyes turned red. "Kill!" Tang Ao also yelled. At this point, he had no other choice but to kill his way out. Moreover, he had to escape before Qin Wudao could attack. Tang Ao wasn't sure about Qin Wudao's cultivation strength, but there were rumors in the city that he had entered level 6 of the body tempering realm many years ago. The difference between each level was huge, not to mention the fact that the 2 of them were at least 5 levels apart. At this moment, Tang Ao was definitely not his match. "Stop!" Just as Tang Ao was about to face the enemy, a voice rang out, stopping everyone present. "Uncle Fu." Seeing who it was, Tang Ao's face lit up, and the burden in his heart was finally lifted. "Qin clan, don't you think you've gone too far?" Uncle Fu approached and stared at Qin Wudao with an overbearing gaze. Behind him, there were 20 to 30 city guards following behind him. Qin Wushuang's face was livid. Looking at Uncle Fu and the others who were still approaching, he secretly hated himself for acting like a family head. If he had attacked just now, he would have already ended Tang Ao's life. "It was Tang Ao who broke into our Qin clan first. We were just taking precautions." Qin Wudao stood on the doorstep with his hands clasped behind his back and said indifferently, "Break into your mother's ass. Does the Qin clan have any shame?" Tang Ao cursed again. At this point, he no longer had any apprehensions. The people led by Uncle Fu were all the best soldiers in the city, and each of them could fight 1 against 10. "Bastard, you're seeking death." Qin Wudao's face that had just calmed down was once again agitated. He reached out his trembling arm and pointed at Tang Ao. At the side, the corner of Uncle Fu's eyes twitched a few times. He couldn't believe it. In his impression, when did the well-behaved, sensible, and well-mannered young master become so wanton and unrestrained? "Humph, do you still want to attack?" Uncle Fu snapped out of his daze and narrowed his eyes at Qin Wudao. "Fine. Today's matter ends here. However, I'm afraid that the Destiny Stone won't be able to repay you because Shuang is about to merge with it. I really have to thank you for this. You little bastard." Qin Wudao gritted his teeth as he spat out the last few words. Then, he waved his sleeves and signaled for the guards to retreat. The guards were unwilling, but they didn't dare to disobey. With bloodshot eyes, they turned around and carried their dead and injured companions. Chapter 6. "You? Huh. Good, you have guts." Qin Wudao laughed angrily. However, when he saw Uncle Fu and his men brimming with murderous intent, he did not dare to act rashly. Finally, he snorted coldly, turned around, and walked through the door. Uncle Fu frowned slightly. From Tang Ao's words, He could vaguely guess what was going on. Before leaving, Tang Ao did not forget to look at the Qin clan guards who were grieving over the death of their comrade. Pay attention to the feng shui when you bury them. When you dig the pit, make sure it's level. Puffed. One of the guards was so angry that he vomited blood and fainted. The rest of the guards also had sinister expressions as they gritted their teeth. They wanted nothing more than to tear Tang Ao into 1,000 pieces to vent their anger. At the same time, a figure stumbled over. "Someone come quickly. Kill that brat Tang Ao for me." The person who came was Qin Xingho. He happened to be facing Tang Ao and his men who were preparing to return. "All right, I'll help you." Tang Ao mocked as he looked at Qin Xingho with an unfriendly expression. Qin Xingho's expression was as ugly as if he had eaten a bunch of dead flies. However, when he saw the Qin clan guards being carried away, his heart skipped a beat, and he did not dare to say anything more. He glared at Tang Ao angrily and hurriedly walked towards the Qin clan's main door. "Ha! Ha ha!" Tang Ao laughed without any scruples. Qin Xingho's face was ashen, but he did not dare to turn around. He trembled as he walked into the house. "Young master, are you all right?" Uncle Fu sent his men away when he got home and came to the room to ask with concern. Tang Ao shook his head and regained his composure. "Don't worry, Uncle Fu. I'm fine." Following that, Tang Ao told Uncle Fu everything that happened without missing a word. Uncle Fu's heart pounded as he listened to Tang Ao's casual description. He was clearer than anyone about the strength of those 20 special guards of the Qin clan. If they were to attack together, then even an expert at the 5th level of the body refinement realm might not be able to endure it. However, even if that was the case, Tang Ao still managed to kill 3 people on his own despite being surrounded by them without suffering any injuries. Now that he thought about it, Uncle Fu understood why Qin Wudao was so angry today. Previously, when he went to rescue Tang Ao, he was puzzled when he saw the 3 guards lying in front of the Qin family's gate. Now he completely understood. "All right, Uncle Fu, I gave him the Destiny Stone." Tang Ao scratched his head guiltily. "What?" Sure enough, Uncle Fu was so shocked that he almost jumped up. Under Tang Ao's repeated consolation, he slowly regained his composure. However, the frustration and anger on his face did not diminish at all. Tang Ao was extremely talented. In just a few days, he had entered the first firmament of body tempering and obtained his first life soul. Uncle Fu was truly happy for him. However, when he thought about giving away the Destiny Stone for nothing, he still felt a little unwilling. As if he could read Uncle Fu's thoughts, Tang Ao smiled and said, "Uncle Fu, don't worry. The Destiny Stone is useless to me." Uncle Fu woke up from his disappointment. When he heard Tang Ao's words, he was puzzled. He did not understand what Tang Ao meant. This was because such a special Destiny Stone could cause quite a stir in the entire black-yellow continent. Although it's very precious, it's really useless to me. Uncle Fu, don't worry. Tang Ao hesitated for a moment. He decided not to tell Uncle Fu that he had the hidden jade body in the stone for the time being. This was because, even in the previous era, there were not many people with this kind of physique. Moreover, there was no one who did not know its power. "All right then, but if Master were to find out," Uncle Fu said bitterly. Tang Ao looked indifferent. He waved his hand and said, "Uncle Fu, don't worry. When the time comes, I will explain it to Father personally." I understand." Uncle Fu sighed and could only leave helplessly. Now that things had come to this, there was nothing he could do. The treasure had entered the tiger's mouth, and it was too difficult to get it back. After closing the door, Uncle Fu was just about to turn around and leave when an attendant hurriedly rushed over. "What's wrong?" Uncle Fu asked doubtfully when he saw that the servant was so tired that he could barely catch his breath. A moment later, the servant's breathing became smoother. He gently patted his chest and looked at Uncle Fu with a terrified expression. "Uncle Fu, it's bad." Uncle Fu's heart trembled. He stopped the servant who was about to speak and led him away from Tang Ao's room. "Uncle Fu, there's a letter from the outer realm." Master, Master!" As soon as they stepped into Uncle Fu's room, the servant hurriedly spoke. "What happened to Master? Speak quickly." Uncle Fu's body trembled. A bad premonition arose in his heart. He died in the outer realm. "What?" Uncle Fu shouted. Then his body stiffened and he collapsed on the bench. Seeing Uncle Fu in a daze, the servant was somewhat afraid and asked in a low voice, "Uncle Fu, are you all right? You can leave for now. Remember, you can't tell anyone about this. Also, you can't let the young master know about this." Uncle Fu recovered a moment later and instructed the servant. The next day, when the first rays of light shone on the earth, all living things were revived and full of vitality. Pushing open the door and taking a deep breath of fresh air, Tang Ao woke up early in the morning and prepared to cultivate. Within the city lord's mansion, Tang Ao was strolling along a tree-lined path. The normally peaceful morning was exceptionally noisy today. Troops of soldiers were orderly led out of the city lord's mansion. "What's going on?" Tang Ao was puzzled. He didn't understand what was going on. He arrived at Uncle Fu's room and pushed open the door. "Uncle Fu, why are there troops in the mansion? Could it be that someone is disturbing the order of the city? Or are the Qin family's bastards here to cause trouble again?" Seeing Tang Ao, the panic in Uncle Fu's eyes disappeared. He smiled and said, "It's nothing, it's just training the troops." "Training troops? Today isn't the day to train troops." Tang Ao was puzzled. The city's soldiers only trained twice a month, at the beginning and end of the month. The rest of the time, they were basically in the city to maintain order. Uncle Fu was stunned, but he quickly reacted and said, "The weather has been quite hot recently. In order to make them more spirited, we need to increase the number of training sessions." "Oh." Tang Ao nodded his head with a faint smile on his face. After walking out of the room, Tang Ao slightly frowned. Although the panic in Uncle Fu's eyes disappeared in a flash, his cultivation had gradually increased, and he could clearly sense some very subtle things. "Maybe I'm overthinking it." Tang Ao shook his head and shook off the complicated thoughts in his mind. He said, "I have to cultivate properly from today onwards. Before Father returns, I have to improve further." On the way back, Tang Ao came to a corner of the mansion. There was a man-made lake here, surrounded by lush green grassland. Normally, Tang Ao's father would cultivate here. Apart from him and Uncle Fu, no one else would come here. Chapter 7. Using his inner vision, Tang Ao looked towards his dantian. There was a finger-sized hazy sphere of light there. The color of the sphere of light wasn't a single color. There were traces of yellow, gold, and white patterns that interweaved together, invisible to the naked eye. It hasn't completely merged yet, but it's just around the corner. Tang Ao said to himself. This was the source of the hidden jade body in stone. Due to his current cultivation being too low, this hazy sphere of light hadn't completely solidified yet. However, one could still see its differences. At first, Tang Ao was also extremely shocked. He didn't expect that after his rebirth, his constitution wouldn't change in the slightest. It was still the hidden jade body that everyone revered in his past life. While looking at that hazy sphere, Tang Ao looked forward to the day it could truly bloom. Only he himself understood just how terrifying the hidden jade body in stone was. In my past life, when I attacked Monarch's Pass, why did I always feel like it changed? Tang Ao said to himself, recalling the feeling he had at the final moment of his last life. However, this type of memory was too blurry. He couldn't immediately recall what it was. When I'm powerful enough, I'll use a secret technique to help me recover the memory fragments I lost before I fell. Tang Ao could only temporarily give up, no longer thinking about this problem. Ancient God moves the heavens. When Tang Ao truly understood this technique, he couldn't help but sigh in admiration. It was just too useful in expanding one's potential, breaking through one's own shackles, and attacking an even more powerful domain. It wasn't just a technique, but more like an explanation of the meaning of the 7 great secret realms. Every layer was closely related to the 7 great secret realms. In the depths of Tang Ao's mind, his divine sense surged. Every word related to the ancient god moves the heavens clearly appeared in his mind. In his dantian, wisps of silver, snake-like true essence, and the hidden jade body in stone's origin hazy light began to slowly revolve. At this moment, Tang Ao began to operate the ancient god moves the heavens. Golden patterns flickered with light, emerging from Tang Ao's body, like a layer of dazzling divine cocoon, wrapping him within. Tang Ao's eyes were tightly closed. Within his body, ancient characters that seemed like they were formed from true essence were branded into every major acupoint in his body. This was the essence of the ancient god, moves the heavens. As time passed, the ancient characters in his body seemed to have a life of their own, transforming into small golden fish. At the same time, the 365 major acupoints in his body flashed at the same time. Every little fish was like a solidified golden light. They connected with each other and connected 365 major acupoints, forming a mysterious pattern in his body. At this moment, in Tang Ao's originally tranquil dantian, the hazy origin of the hidden jade and stone began to rotate rapidly. Although this hazy light was very faint, as time passed, this faint light gradually condensed together, forming a finger-sized jade colored out of light that flickered erratically. At first, this out of light was still floating in his dantian. One moment it emitted a golden light. The next moment it was as white as a lamp. However, as the 365 major acupoints in his body became brighter, this dot of light became more and more stable. In the end, it was like a pure white moon that floated in the center of his dantian, quietly rotating. At the same time, the 365 major acupoints regained their tranquility. At this moment, Tang Ao's heart was filled with joy. He had originally wanted to give it a try and activate the ancient god moving sky technique, but he did not expect that it would actually have such great benefits to the body's origin power. One had to know that this dot of light was the root of a cultivator. If the dantian was a pool of essence, then this dot of light was the core of the pool. It was the dantian supply pool, and the ancient god moves the heavens could indirectly nourish and nurture it. One could imagine the benefits. As he sensed it, Tang Ao discovered something that made him ecstatic. The seemingly tranquil 365 major acupoints were actually emitting an extremely weak glow that was invisible to the naked eye. The glow was interconnected and formed lines that were 100 times thinner than a strand of hair. Among them, one of the lines was the thickest and could be seen with the naked eye. Tang Ao used his heart to sense it, and was shocked to find that the origin that corresponded to him was the life spirit that he had previously opened. This was something that he could not have imagined. This was because even when he stood at the peak of martial arts in his previous life, he had never encountered such a strange thing. After thinking about it carefully, he came to a conclusion. This could be one of the effects of the ancient god moves the heavens. It allowed the life spirit to appear in the body and soul at the same time, thus achieving the process of turning illusion into reality. After this thought was confirmed, Tang Ao was even more shocked. One had to know that the life spirit in the boundless universe was an existence of nothingness in another sense. Even if it could be used in reality, once the body died, the life spirit would dissipate along with it. The effect of the ancient god moves the heavens was to turn nothingness into reality. Through deduction, Tang Ao realized that when this pattern completely solidified, it might be the day when the life spirit turned from nothingness into reality. After an unknown amount of time, Tang Ao was immersed in the ancient god moves the heavens, causing it to circulate in his body and nourish every part of his body. Kacha. Vaguely, there seemed to be a very faint sound coming from his body, as if something had shattered. Then, a strong aura exploded from Tang Ao's body, even more violent than before. But in an instant, This aura disappeared and was retracted into his body. After a while, Tang Ao slowly opened his eyes, and the ancient god moves the heavens stopped circulating. His dantian also regained its calm. The jade-colored light floated in the center of his dantian, spinning slowly on its own. At this moment, Tang Ao felt a confidence that he had never felt before. Not only had he recovered to his peak state before he sealed himself, but he had also become even stronger. His eyes seemed to be filled with life, and his skin shone with a crystalline luster, giving off a strong feeling. Every move he made had an indescribable aura. It was extraordinary, as if he was wrapped up in the great Tao. The second tier of the body-tempering realm. But is it like the third tier? Tang Ao said to himself. He felt that his state was not very stable. It was like the third tier, but it was also not. Finally, Tang Ao confirmed that he had 1 foot in the third tier of the body-tempering realm. He was at a bottleneck and could break through at any time. Actually, if Tang Ao wanted to break through the body-tempering realm and enter the next secret realm, it would be easy. But he was very clear about the consequences of doing so. Cultivators had to take 1 step at a time and slowly climb up. If they were impatient for success, not only would it produce the opposite effect, but it could also cause them to fall into a hopeless situation where they could only stop there for the rest of their lives. In his previous life, he had 1 foot in the extreme Tao, but the last moment, his foundation wavered, and he wanted to advance quickly. This caused him to fall into a state of eternal damnation. The potential of the body must correspond to the 7 major secret realms, or else. Tang Ao said to himself. He tossed aside the memories in his mind and seriously felt the benefits of advancing to the next level. In his body, in his dantian, traces of spiritual energy seemed to have become slightly thicker. Also, the meridians in his body were unobstructed, and dots of light flowed in his blood. And the pattern in his body that was connected to his life spirit also became clearer to the extent that it could be seen with the naked eye. Chapter 8. Should I go to the vast 1,000 domains to awaken another life soul? Tang Ao muttered to himself as he thought of something else. In the end, he gave up on the idea. Although his soul was incomparable to ordinary people, he could not enter and exit the vast 1,000 domains as he pleased. After understanding that the ancient God-moving sky technique could turn a life soul from nothingness into reality, he had to cherish every choice of life soul. Although he could awaken thousands of life souls, there were only 365 life souls that could be transformed by the ancient God-moving sky technique, which corresponded to the 365 major acupoints in his body. Moreover, with his current strength, he should not be able to enter the 6th heaven of the vast 1,000 domains. Therefore, he decided not to awaken a life soul for the time being. He did not know what kind of fate awaited him in the future, so from now on, Tang Ao had to carefully decide every step. His mind was in turmoil. With a thought, Tang Ao moved, and a blood-stained spear appeared out of thin air above his head. The spear was stained with blood, and the spear shaft was already rusted. However, the sharp spear edge was shining with a cold light, and a strong, murderous aura filled the surroundings, making people shudder. It's really like this. The ancient God-moving sky technique can materialize a life soul. Looking at the 100 battle spear soul in front of him, Tang Ao clearly felt that this spear was much more real than when he had first obtained it. Controlling the 100 battle spear soul to move slowly, Tang Ao reached out and held it in his palm. At this moment, the texture of the 100 battle spear soul appeared clearly in his heart. I have gained a lot today, so let's call it a day. Putting away the life soul, Tang Ao lay lazily on the grass. Looking at the sky, the scorching sun was already hanging high above his head. Before he knew it, it was already noon. I wanted to be an ordinary person for a lifetime and experience life. But, damned heavens, you just can't stand me. Tang Ao said helplessly, but there was no trace of anger or unwillingness. In the afternoon, Tang Ao left the city lord's mansion and strolled alone in the city. Tang Ao thought of the person in his heart, Ruer. The scenes of them spending time together emerged clearly in his heart. Brother Little Tang, come and chase me. In his memories, there was a beautiful girl running through the forest. Her clothes were as white as snow, and her long black hair fluttered in the wind. Little Brother Tang, it's okay if you don't know martial arts. Ruer will protect you from now on. Brother Little Tang, do you love me? Little Brother Tang, I want to marry you. Their interactions in the past were still vivid in their minds, as if it had just happened yesterday. However, Tang Ao could never have imagined that the girl who wanted to marry him, the girl he swore to protect for the rest of his life, would change his fate. That innocent smile and that graceful figure appeared in Tang Ao's mind all the time. Perhaps he didn't have a choice, but let bygones be bygones. Tang Ao took a deep breath. When he recognized the path he had to take, the depression in his heart was swept away. In this life, I will only pursue the pinnacle of martial arts. As he walked through the endless stream of people, Tang Ao did not stand out. However, his pair of eyes, which were filled with determination, told everyone that he was different. Gurgle, Tang Ao's stomach growled. Only then did he realize that half a day had passed and he had not eaten yet. After walking through a street, Tang Ao saw a fragrant bun shop. It was already packed with people. He couldn't resist the temptation and walked straight in. Did you guys hear? The governor's son, Tang Ao, actually went to the Qin family to cause trouble yesterday. Not only that, but this guy's cultivation base seemed to have increased tremendously in just a few days. He seems to have injured a few of the Qin family's best guards. The governor's son is challenging the Qin family, the #1 aristocratic family in Bluestone City. This is going to be a good show. As soon as Tang Ao sat down, he heard all kinds of discussions. Ignoring them, he ordered 2 baskets of buns and began to wolf them down. Tang Ao, you little thief, my third miss, Qin Yueshuang, has issued an order. Do you dare to accept the challenge at Bluestone City's tournament tomorrow? Suddenly, a loud voice rang out on the street, followed by a burst of noise. Tang Ao, who was enjoying his meal, suddenly frowned and looked outside through the window. He saw a group of about 10 people approaching from afar. One of them was holding a large flag with Qin Yueshuang's name and a bright red handprint on it. The challenge flag was a tool used by the cultivators in the black-yellow continent to challenge each other. Once the 2 parties reached an agreement, they could write their names on the challenge flag and put their handprints on it. Then, they could compete in any tournament ring. Most importantly, once they entered the tournament ring, it meant that they were responsible for their own lives. Once someone died, the clan's power would seek revenge in secret, and they would be severely punished by everyone. This was also one of the reasons why the tournament ring was built. Tang Ao, you little thief, do you dare to accept the challenge at Bluestone City's tournament tomorrow? The young man holding the challenge flag shouted again. Tang Ao ignored them. After watching them approach, he lowered his head and wolfed down his food again. For him, filling his stomach was the most important thing now. I heard that Qin Yueshuang integrated with the Destiny Stone last night. It seems that the news is not without reason. She integrated with the Destiny Stone last night, and today she issued a challenge letter. It seems that the Qin family is determined to kill Tang Ao. Sigh, I really don't understand. Although Tang Ao is the governor's son, he is just a mortal after all. Why would he? You don't know yet, right? I heard she'll. Be quiet. In the bun shop, a young man was about to say something, but he was interrupted by a middle-aged man sitting next to him. The middle-aged man looked around in panic. Tang Ao snorted coldly in his heart. It seemed that the truth could not be concealed. The news of the Qin family framing him had more or less leaked. However, a person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. Ordinary people could not afford to offend the Qin family. So what if someone knew the inside story? No one would offend a powerful force for him. I wonder if Tang Ao will accept the challenge. I don't think so. No matter how arrogant Tang Ao is, how can Qin Yueshuang's Destiny Crepe Myrtle Dao Constitution be comparable to ordinary people? That's right. The Destiny Crepe Myrtle Dao Constitution is too rare. In addition, Qin Yueshuang is talented and powerful. I'm afraid that even if Tang Ao goes, he will only be courting death. After leaving the bun shop and walking on the street, Tang Ao vaguely heard the shouts of the young man from the Qin family who was holding the challenge flag again. Not only do they want to challenge, but they also want to make my family lose face. Tang Ao sneered. How could he not understand the intention of the other party's actions? If they wanted challenge, they could just send a letter to the city lord's mansion. Why did they have to shout on the street? The purpose of doing so was to let the whole city know. In this case, if Tang Ao did not go, he would definitely be scolded as a coward and a traitor. And if he went, in the hearts of the Qin family's disciples, Qin Yueshuang, who had integrated the Destiny Crepe Myrtle Dao Constitution, would undoubtedly win. Therefore, no matter what, Tang Ao would not have a good ending. Secretly harming people, and now you want a thief to cry thief. Qin family. Oh, Qin family, you guys really don't want any face at all. Tang Ao muttered to himself indifferently. Tang Ao was not angry. In his previous life, he had seen too many people who were even more despicable and shameless than the Qin family. It could be said that he had long been used to the existence of such people. Tang Ao did not leave. Instead, he followed far behind the Qin family's team. However, what surprised him was that in a short hour, the incident of the Qin family's third young Miss Qin Yueshuang challenging Tang Ao almost spread throughout the entire Limestone City. Now, everywhere Tang Ao passed by, everyone was discussing about the two of them. Although many things were said differently, there was one thing that everyone agreed on. Chapter 9. Sigh, just how annoying am I? Tang Ao muttered to himself helplessly. Seeing that more and more people were gathering, he used the transfiguration technique in a small alley to change his appearance. The transfiguration technique was considered one of the more inferior techniques in the continent. It could only be used to change one's appearance. Of course, if the transfiguration technique did not release its aura, it would be difficult for ordinary people to detect it. Who says that Tang Ao will lose? I have high hopes for him. A loud and clear voice resounded not far away. Tang Ao was suddenly startled. He didn't expect that someone would actually stand on his side. Looking in the direction of the voice, Tang Ao realized that the person who had spoken was a little fatty. He was about the same age as him, around 18 or 19 years old. He wore a green robe and held a fan in his hand. Behind him were two followers, one on his left and one on his right. Hearing the little fatty shout so loudly without any misgivings, the two followers behind him were immediately shocked and hurriedly warned him in a low voice. What are you afraid of? I, young Master Nangong, have never been afraid of anyone. The fatty had an unrestrained look on his face. He ignored the two followers and continued. I know that the Qin family must have done something behind the scenes. This is the kind of person I despise the most. The more the crowd heard, the more shocked they became. It was as if they were afraid that the fatty would vent his anger on them. They hurriedly distanced themselves from the fatty. Tang Ao was quite interested in him, and his eyes were filled with excitement. After a while, he frowned slightly. He had thought that this fatty, whom he had never met before, would be an expert in cultivation. However, Tang Ao realized that he had not even entered the body refining realm, let alone awaken his life spirit. Who is this person? Tang Ao thought about it and realized that this person was not from Limestone City. Because his father was the city lord, he had some understanding of the various powers in Limestone City. However, he had never heard of a family with the surname Nangong. Little brother Tang Ao, where are you? Brother Nangong, let me treat you to a celebratory drink in advance. The fatty in the green robe shouted, his voice echoing across half the street. Fortunately, the group from the Qin clan had already gone far away. Otherwise, an unforeseen event would definitely occur, because this person was simply too arrogant. The passers-by were terrified. They didn't expect that someone would dare to challenge the Qin family so brazenly. Moreover, he even said that he would treat Tang Ao to a celebratory drink. Tang Ao, on the other hand, had been following behind. He found the little fatty more and more interesting. Finally, He quickened his pace and caught up. "Brother, may I know your name?" The green-robed little fatty was slightly surprised by Tang Ao's arrival, but he recovered in an instant. His small eyes narrowed into slits as he smiled and said, "I'm Nangong Shui." "What? Brother, you're so close to me, aren't you afraid?" Tang Ao understood the meaning behind Nangong Shui's words, but he didn't take it to heart. He said, "Haha, I share the same thoughts as Brother Nangong. The Qin clan's bunch of thieves are full of tricks. They're truly not good people." "Haha, brother, you're also a straightforward person. That's nothing. Who do the Qin clan think they are? I believe that Tang Ao will definitely win." Tang Ao replied in a loud voice. Very soon, the two of them were thoroughly chatting together. They had their arms around each other's shoulders, chatting and laughing as they chatted. They looked unrestrained and frivolous. If someone who didn't know what was going on saw them, they would definitely think that the two of them were good brothers who hadn't seen each other for many years. Behind them, the two attendants felt a headache coming on. They really didn't know what to do. Nangong Shui put a hand on Tang Ao's shoulder and said casually, "Brother and I are kindred spirits. Today's trip to Bluestone City has not been in vain." A trace of a smile flashed in Tang Ao's eyes. He replied, "Haha, not at all. Brother Nangong is the one with true feelings. All right, today it's my treat. The two of us will drink and chat merrily. We'll give that brat Tang Ao some moral support." Nangong Shui said with a smile. The flesh on her chubby face jiggled, and her eyes narrowed so much that they couldn't be seen. "Yes, I've been fortunate enough to meet Tang Ao before. He's simply a romantic, handsome, powerful, and peerless heaven's chosen one. He's a peerless heaven's chosen one. He's truly a role model for our generation," Tang Ao said with a straight face. "How dare you?" At the entrance of the restaurant, they once again encountered the people of the Qin clan. The two of them had brazenly challenged the dignity of the Qin clan. This news had already spread through the streets and alleys. Therefore, these people had specially returned because of this. "Let me tell you, Tang Ao will definitely come. Don't make a fuss here." Nangong Shui wasn't afraid at all. She looked at these people with a look of disdain. "How dare you? Who are you? How dare you challenge the dignity of the Qin clan? You must be tired of living." A young man of the Qin clan shouted. "I'm Tang Ao's cousin. What's wrong? Not satisfied?" Nangong Shui shouted. At the side, Tang Ao, who hadn't spoken a word, almost stumbled. "Big cousin." Tang Ao had a look of helplessness on his face. This fatty Nangong was really a weirdo. Come. Your cousin will sign this challenge flag on his behalf now." Under the shocked gazes of the Qin clan disciples and the surrounding crowd, fatty Nangong actually took out a pen from nowhere and wrote Tang Ao's name on the challenge flag. Then he pressed his own handprint onto the flag. From start to finish, the young man holding the challenge flag was dumbstruck. This was the first time he'd heard that the challenge flag could be signed by someone else. Cousin Tang Ao accepted the challenge on his behalf. The onlookers didn't care about this dramatic scene. The news spread in an instant, and soon, everyone in the city knew about it. In a private room of the restaurant, looking at the table full of delicious food, Tang Ao really didn't have the mood to eat. "Brother Nangong, what you're doing isn't very good," Tang Ao asked timidly, a little annoyed. Nangong Shui didn't think much of it. She poured wine by herself and said proudly, "Brother, you're worrying too much. What does winning or losing have to do with us? It's good if Tang Ao wins, but even if he loses, we're not the ones getting beaten up. Our flesh won't hurt, so we don't have to care. F***CK your mother." Tang Ao cursed in his heart. At this moment, he really wanted to shout, "I care." However, for the sake of safety, he endured it. After thinking for a while, Tang Ao felt that it wasn't a big deal. He would go to Qin Yueshuang's door sooner or later. It wasn't because of the Heaven's Mandate Stone, but because she had crossed a line in Tang Ao's heart. Tang Ao wasn't a gentleman, but he wasn't petty either. Some grudges had to be avenged. After a sumptuous dinner, Tang Ao and Nangong Shui went their separate ways. Through their conversation, Tang Ao learned that this little fatty wasn't from Greenstone City. He was from Lin City, which was a few hundred miles away. He was born into a famous family, which was one of the top business families in the Black-Yellow continent. Now that he thought about it, Tang Ao's doubts were solved. No wonder he didn't have any concerns about the Qin family. It was because they had a strong background. In addition, the Qin family owed the Nangong family a huge debt, which they hadn't paid back for a long time. It would be strange if Nangong Shui had a good impression of the Qin family. By the way, brother, I haven't asked for your name yet. Before they parted, Nangong Shui suddenly asked. Chapter 10. Early in the morning, Tang Ao left the city governor's mansion. He thought for the whole night and finally decided to accept the challenge. Not only was it related to his personal matters, but it also involved his father's reputation. In Bluestone City, on the street leading to the battle arena, a slender young man in a black robe shuttled through the crowd. "It's really lively here," Tang Ao said lazily as he held the back of his head with both hands and looked at the crowd heading to the battle arena. Hurry up, hurry up. Today is the chance to see the Qin family's third Missy in action. It'll be too late if we're late." What do you know? The Qin family's third Missy is as beautiful as a fairy. Everyone is going to watch her because of her beauty. I can tell that you're not well informed. You still don't know? Yesterday afternoon, I heard that two young men came out of nowhere and kept challenging the Qin family. I think one of them is Tang Ao's cousin, but I don't know about the other one. However, they have completely offended the Qin family. I think if Tang Ao comes today, he will not be able to bear the consequences. Along the way, all kinds of discussions could be heard. Tang Ao was so annoyed that he had no choice but to circulate his internal energy and seal his hearing. Suddenly, he felt that the whole world was quiet. With a faint smile on his face, he relaxed his mind and strode toward the stage. In front of him, the crowd was getting bigger and bigger. The whole street was surrounded. As far as the eye could see, there were more than 3,000 people who came to watch. Seeing this scene, the originally carefree Tang Ao could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. He did not expect that Qin Yueshuang's reputation in Bluestone City would have such a great influence. Releasing a trace of weak spiritual sense to explore the surroundings, Tang Ao discovered that there were no less than 10 experts among the crowd of onlookers. There were also some people whose strength he couldn't see through. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Although he grew up in Bluestone City, in the past 10 years, Tang Ao had sealed his cultivation and did not care about the city's affairs. Today he was quite surprised. Qin Yueshuang is here. So beautiful. She's more beautiful than a fairy. Extraordinary temperament and transcendent demeanor. Is this the Qin family's third daughter, Qin Yueshuang? It truly lives up to its reputation. In front of them, the crowd surged and shouted Qin Yueshuang's name. Some of the young men's eyes lit up as they looked at the graceful figure on the stage. The corners of their mouths were almost dripping to the ground. Tang Ao first cursed them in his heart, then raised his head and looked forward. On the stage, a graceful figure slowly walked to the center of the stage with a lotus under her feet. This was a young girl who was less than 20 years old. Her clothes were as white as snow and fluttered with the wind, making rustling sounds. To Tang Ao, he couldn't be more familiar with this young lady. She was undoubtedly Qin Yueshuang. Although the two of them were now mortal enemies, Tang Ao had to admit that Qin Yueshuang was indeed beautiful. However, the white-robed woman still gave off a feeling as if she was a fairy descending from the 9 heavens. She was like an empress. She had long, beautiful black hair and a flawless face. Her eyebrows were curved, her nose was high, and her lips were small. Her clear eyes were calm and tranquil. From time to time, she would blink her big eyes and look at the crowd below the stage, as if she was looking for something. Tang Ao was slightly taken aback. He couldn't help but have a feeling in his heart. The woman on the stage was radiant, and her beauty was flickering. It was like a dazzling, starry sky, giving off a feeling as if she was a fairy descending from the nine heavens. She was like a dormant empress. Wearing a white dress, she stood above the nine heavens. Her temperament was transcendent, and she had an invincible and peerless demeanor. She was like an empress overlooking the masses. What's going on? After a while, Tang Ao came back to his senses. He couldn't help but laugh at himself when he realized that he had such thoughts about his enemy. Is Tang Ao here? A clear and melodious voice rang out. It was like the cry of an oriole, and it spread throughout the entire street. Tang Ao was shocked. That simple sentence had inadvertently revealed some of Qin Yueshuang's strength. Although the voice wasn't loud, it clearly spread to every corner of the street. This kind of sound technique could only be used by an expert. Tang Ao, come out. Just as Qin Yueshuang's words landed, another voice rang out from the crowd. It was a loud howl, scaring everyone. Tang Ao felt a headache coming on. He didn't expect Nan Shui to really come to watch the show. Without any hesitation, he walked straight to the stage. What are you squeezing for? Are you? Tang Ao. He's actually here. The crowd was in an uproar. Someone noticed Tang Ao and shouted, attracting everyone's attention. Should I call you Brother Nangong, or should I call you Big Cousin? When he passed by Nangong Shui, Tang Ao snappily asked. Gulp. Nangong Shui swallowed a mouthful of saliva in disbelief. She rubbed her eyes and asked, Kid, is it really you? I can't even see through your disguise. How dare you challenge the Qin clan? Or do you think it's easier to talk while sitting down? Tang Ao mocked. He brushed past Nangong Shui and walked forward. Hee hee. Nangong Shui scratched his head awkwardly and shouted at Tang Ao's back. Brother Tang, do your best. If you win, I'll treat you to a drink. It's okay if you lose, I'll treat you. Tang Ao almost stumbled. His forehead was full of black lines. This guy's mouth was really asking for it. Kid, you really dare to come? Below the stage, Qin Xingho and a group of Qin clan disciples blocked Tang Ao's way. Looking at the person in front of him, Qin Xingho's eyes were about to spit fire. When he was beaten up by Tang Ao, he was still taking medicine. Are you itching for a beating again? Tang Ao said, his eyes full of provocation. You. Qin Xingho was so angry that his whole body trembled. He quickly said, Don't be so smug. You won't be able to laugh even if you want to later. Tang Ao snorted coldly. He was not willing to waste any more time talking to Qin Xingho. He pushed Qin Xingho away and leaped onto the stage. You're here. Qin Yueshuang only spoke 3 short words. When she saw Tang Ao, her expression was extremely calm. There was no joy nor anger. The corner of Tang Ao's mouth curled up, revealing a trace of a cold smile. He was shocked because he realized that something had happened to Qin Yueshuang. I've merged with the Destiny Stone, and now have the Destiny Crepe Myrtle Daoist physique. You can't beat me, Qin Yueshuang said indifferently. Although they were standing opposite each other, she had a condescending attitude. As soon as she said this, the crowd below the stage was in an uproar. Although everyone had guessed that Qin Yueshuang had merged with the Destiny Stone and become the Crepe Myrtle Daoist physique. But after hearing it from her mouth, they were still shocked. This type of physique was too rare. To be able to awaken the Destiny Crepe Myrtle, one must be extremely talented. Tang Ao did not think much of it. He said calmly, Is that so? Although I don't know how you can cultivate in such a short time, whether it's luck or fate, you can't win. Qin Yueshuang's voice was calm, but very confident. You overestimate the strength of the Destiny Crepe Myrtle Daoist physique. Tang Ao replied. What he said was the truth. In his previous life, he had fought with someone with this type of physique. Although his opponent was an outstanding cultivator with extraordinary strength, he was still no match for the hidden jade body in the stone and was unwilling to admit defeat. Chapter 11. Qin Yueshuang stood with her hands clasped behind her back. The endless purple light around her became more and more dazzling. In the end, it was like a dazzling galaxy shining brightly. At this moment, Qin Yueshuang looked even more sacred. I have you to thank for all of this. Today, I will let you witness the amazing power of the fated crepe myrtle Tao constitution, Qin Yueshuang said calmly, without the slightest ripple in her eyes. The void trembled, and a purple crescent moon rose into the sky, floating above Qin Yueshuang's head. Under the illumination of the purple moon, the purple light around her became even brighter. Is she a god? Just like the Empress. Below the stage, everyone was dumbfounded. Most of them were ordinary people, and they had rarely seen such a scene. Now that they saw it, they really thought that Qin Yueshuang had been possessed by a god. On the other hand, Tang Ao was dressed in a black robe. Apart from his handsome face, there was nothing eye-catching about him. It's over. I'm afraid Brother Tang won't be able to handle it this time, Nangong Shuem murmured. Hurry up and go to the best medical center in Greenstone City. Tell them to reserve more medicine for external and internal injuries. Also, buy a coffin. Nangong Shui had already started to arrange for Tang Ao's funeral. She whispered to the two servants behind her. If Tang Ao, who was on the stage, knew what he was thinking, he would definitely give up on the competition and beat Fatty Nangong up. The two servants left with black faces. Although they did not dare to disobey, they were screaming in their hearts. Heavens, what kind of young master have I followed? I hope you will do your best, Qin Yueshuang said again. Her expression was no longer calm, and her voice carried a hint of killing intent. Be careful. Tang Ao did not want to be outdone. He immediately responded, and at the same time, prepared for battle. For a moment, the whole street fell into a dead silence. The sound of heartbeats and breathing could be heard clearly. Qi, a beam of light, broke the silence of the scene. Qin Yueshuang made the first move. The purple moon above her head emitted a dazzling light. She raised her index and middle fingers together and shot out a beam of purple light that pierced through the void and went straight for Tang Ao's vital parts. Humph. Tang Ao snorted coldly. This finger light was aimed at the top of his head. The other party wanted to kill him right from the start. The soles of Tang Ao's feet glowed as he exerted force from his waist. His body leaned to the side, and he dodged to the side. The bright purple finger light brushed past his shoulder. Seeing that Tang Ao had easily dodged her attack, Qin Yueshuang's eyes were a little surprised, but it disappeared in a flash. Step by step, she approached Tang Ao and stretched out her slender arms. Her jade-like fingers stretched out, wanting to slap his chest. Tang Ao's expression turned cold, but he did not panic. The ancient god moving sky technique started to circulate rapidly in his body. Bam! Their forepalms collided, and a muffled sound was heard. The sound wasn't loud, but it shook the eardrums of the spectators. Qin Yueshuang and Tang Ao retreated a few steps at the same time. They stood in place and looked at each other. At this moment, both of them were shocked. Qin Yueshuang didn't expect Tang Ao to become so strong. Although she didn't use her full strength in that palm strike, she thought that if it hit, Tang Ao would be half crippled even if he didn't die. However, she didn't expect that Tang Ao would actually receive this palm strike and come out unscathed. Tang Ao was also very surprised. Through the exchange just now, he could roughly guess Qin Yueshuang's cultivation level. She should be at the third firmament of body tempering, and it was very likely that she was about to break through to the fourth firmament. When the two of them completely broke up, Tang Ao clearly remembered that Qin Yueshuang's cultivation level was at the third firmament of body tempering. He didn't expect that in just a few days, she would once again break through the shackles and advance one step further. Thinking about it, it should be related to awakening the destiny purple myrtle. This process of communicating with the power of the star sea would produce great benefits for one's body. Tang Ao didn't think too much about it. He looked for an opportunity and immediately attacked. Although there was a small difference in strength between him and Qin Yueshuang, it wasn't a problem for Tang Ao. The only tricky thing was that she had released the extraordinary destiny purple myrtle Tao physique at the beginning. Although Tang Ao had the hidden jade and stone physique, this physique had many limitations. It couldn't be of much use in the early stages. Moreover, He didn't want to completely expose his strength so early. As Tang Ao fought, he activated the ancient god moving sky technique. When it was circulated to an extreme speed, Tang Ao's skin glowed, and spots of jade-colored light appeared on the surface of his body. They were very weak and hard to detect. This was the manifestation of the ancient god moving sky technique after it was activated to the extreme. At this moment, Tang Ao felt refreshed. The consecutive clashes didn't make him feel tired at all. On the contrary, he felt that his speed had become more acute. His body was as light as a swallow, but every inch of his body contained an astonishing explosive power. On the contrary, Qin Yueshuang became more and more shocked as she fought. Layers of palm prints and energy beams shot out continuously. The purple crescent moon above her head also seemed to materialize. It spewed out rays of light that all gathered at the top of her head. Suddenly, Qin Yueshuang let out a delicate shout. Her body left the ground and leaped into the air. She turned her palm into a saber and slashed out a saber light. It swept out with an unstoppable force. Tang Ao looked up and his eyes shot out two beams of divine light. At this moment, he gathered all his true essence in his right fist. A surge of vigorous explosive power suddenly burst forth from his body. Tang Ao used the ancient god moving sky technique to protect his body. He clenched his fists and rushed towards the irresistible saber light. Boom! A huge shockwave erupted from the center of the martial stage and spread out in all directions. At the forefront, the onlookers were instantly affected. One by one, they fell backwards like wheat being harvested in a field. On the martial stage, Tang Ao stood motionless. His eyes were cold. On his right hand, a few traces of blood flowed down and fell to his feet. On the other side, Qin Yueshuang had long lost her previous calm. Her peerless face was filled with disbelief. Her proud chest heaved up and down violently. There was a trace of captivating red blood at the corner of her mouth. Under this attack, both of them were injured. Although Qin Yueshuang had used a saber light, it was not formed from ordinary true essence. Instead, it contained a trace of the heavens' mandate purple myrtle's source power. Otherwise, Tang Ao would not have used such a powerful attack. The saber light had disintegrated, and Qin Yueshuang had also suffered indirect injuries. Her heart was in turmoil, and she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Tang Ao was the same. Not only was his palm injured, but his internal organs were also affected. "You are not as strong as I thought you were." Sure enough, broken shoes are only worthy of rotten stones. Tang Ao sneered and straightened his back. "You?" Qin Yueshuang's beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Her chest heaved up and down even more violently. She stretched out a jade-like finger and pointed it at Tang Ao. Tang Ao just looked at her coldly. His eyes were full of ridicule. What he said was the truth. If this was the true strength of Qin Yueshuang, who had awakened the heavens' mandate purple myrtle Taoist body, then it would not be difficult for him to defeat her. Chapter 12. Below the stage, the crowd's jaws had already dropped to the ground in shock. Even Nangong Shui's eyes were glued to the scene. Even though he does not know how powerful Tang Ao is, he has some understanding of it. In his heart, how could a mere mortal possibly defeat a heaven-gifted crepe myrtle body? He had previously voiced his support for Tang Ao to vent his dissatisfaction towards the Qin family. A young man and woman stood facing each other in front of him. One of them was dressed in robes whiter than snow and looked like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. The other was dressed in black robes and had a resolute look on his face. His straight figure was immovable. This was an extremely shocking scene. "I've underestimated you." After a while, Qin Yueshuang regained her composure and the anger on her face disappeared. She then stared calmly at Tang Ao. "I've overestimated you," Tang Ao replied as his eyes filled with ridicule. Qin Yueshuang was not angered. On the contrary, a smile appeared on her peerlessly beautiful face. Her smile was like a blooming lily that tugged at one's heartstrings. I've only used half of the Destiny's crepe myrtle's power, Qin Yue Shuang replied calmly. Her eyes were as calm as still water. She looked at Tang Ao and continued, You've become more powerful, but I'm no longer the same person I used to be. Tang Ao nodded. Qin Yue Shuang's eyes lit up with a smile. However, the smile that had just appeared on her face froze in an instant. You're right. You're a broken shoe now. Not only that, it's because your size isn't suitable for me. That's why I threw you away. Tang Ao looked at Qin Yue Shuang with ridicule. You bastard. After holding it in for a long time, Qin Yue Shuang forced these two words out. She had been pampered since a young age and had grown up surrounded by countless glorious halos. As such, she was very particular about her manners and rarely scolded anyone. Now that Tang Ao had repeatedly called her a whore in front of so many people, Qin Yue Shuang could no longer endure it no matter how good her temperament had become. Her delicate body trembled uncontrollably and her peerless features were filled with shame and anger. Even a bastard is better than a broken shoe, right? Tang Ao's mouth was unforgiving, and every word he said hit the nail on the head. Qin Yue Shuang couldn't take it anymore. Coupled with the injury she had just suffered, her chest felt hot, and she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, staining her clothes red. This was completely out of anger. This guy, his mouth is too poisonous. The audience couldn't take it anymore. The word used shoes was too sensitive for women. It had a meaning that was not worth insulting. However, for Tang Ao, words were free. Seeing that Qin Yue Shuang was so angry that she vomited blood, the smile on his face became brighter, and his mouth was equally unforgiving. Ah! Qin Yue Shuang screamed. Her waterfall-like hair was disheveled and draped over her shoulders. Pop! Vaguely, there seemed to be a sound coming from the void. Then, the purple moon above Qin Yue Shuang's head began to emit a dazzling light. The few traces of purple light that had originally slid to the top of her head poured down like a small waterfall. Around her, the bright starry sky was particularly dazzling, and it flickered at the same time. Then, they began to gather, forming a thin layer of glowing purple armor on the surface of Qin Yue Shuang's body. You're courting death, Qin Yue Shuang shouted angrily. She no longer had a trace of her previous calmness. She didn't even care about her image anymore. She used all her strength, determined to kill the person in front of her. Tang Ao was shocked. At this moment, he could clearly feel the power of the Destiny crepe myrtle Dao form. This is dangerous. There was no time for Tang Ao to hesitate. He had no choice but to decisively activate his life spirit. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to withstand this attack. The ancient god, Moves the Heavens, was quickly activated. In his body, a large acupoint emitted a dazzling light. The light surged, forming a tiny silver snake-like pattern that connected to a certain part of his body. Tang Ao decided to send out his life spirit, the 100 Battle Spear Soul. He strengthened his life spirit with the ancient god Moves the Heavens. At the same time, thoughts surged in his mind. Above his head, the void trembled, as if something was about to manifest. Wait! Suddenly, an ancient voice resounded through the heavens and earth, returning to the ears of everyone present. Tang Ao and Qin Yue Shuang were shocked at the same time. Their bodies stiffened, and they unconsciously stopped. Their eyes turned to an old man in the crowd. It was an old man in his 50s. He had a sage-like demeanor, and his hair and beard were all white. At that moment, his deep eyes were like two bottomless pits, staring at Tang Ao and Qin Yue Shuang. My two young friends, why don't you listen to this old man? Under everyone's surprised gazes, the old man slowly stepped forward and stood between Tang Ao and Qin Yue Shuang. Senior, what do you mean? At that moment, Qin Yue Shuang was still angry. She had just gathered enough energy, but before she could explode, she was suppressed by the old man. Tang Ao was also puzzled, looking at the old man with a puzzled expression. My two young friends are very extraordinary, but I have something to tell Miss Qin today. The old man first smiled at Tang Ao, then turned his eyes to Qin Yue Shuang. Qin Yueshuang suppressed the anger in her heart and said coldly, "Senior, if you have something to say, please say it quickly." Huh. The old man was a little embarrassed. He stroked his flowery beard and said, "I am the seventh elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. Now, I specially invite the two of you to participate in the Academy's assessment tomorrow." "I wonder," the old man said with a smile. His eyes were almost squinted into slits, and he looked at Qin Yueshuang with sparkling eyes, as if he had seen a rare treasure. Wow! Not only were Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang stunned, but even the audience below the stage was excited. The Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. It's the second-ranked Heavenly Star Sacred Sect in the East region. This old man is the seventh elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. Rumor has it that the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect has a total of 7 elders, and the youngest senior is already a powerhouse in the life and death realm. The audience below the stage was in an uproar. Even some ordinary people were extremely excited at this moment. The second-ranked Heavenly Star Sacred Sect in the East region was not qualified to enter unless it was a peerless talent. However, the seventh elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect had taken the initiative to throw out an olive branch. The meaning was obvious. He wanted to recruit the two of them. Or, to be more precise, he wanted to recruit Qin Yueshuang, who had awakened the purple myrtle Dao physique. Tang Ao was shocked at first, but then he instantly understood. The purple myrtle Dao physique would definitely cause quite a stir in the continent. Previously, regardless of whether the news was true or false, there would more or less be some rumor spreading. As for these large sects, it could be said that they had spies all over the continent, including Bluestone City. They must have rushed over after receiving this news. Regardless of whether it was true or false, as long as it was tainted with this name, it was enough to attract many people. As expected, just as Tang Ao thought clearly, a few voices once again came from below the stage. "The fifth elder of the Seven Kills sect specially invites the two of you to enter our sect. The Heavenly Moon sect sincerely invites Miss Qin Yueshuang. We can make an exception to exempt you from the assessment." The audience below the stage was in an uproar. The Heavenly Moon sect was ranked within the top 10 in the East region, but now they were going to make an exception for Qin Yueshuang. Following that, a few more voices sounded. They were all invitations from other sections. All in all, there were more than 10 large sects that threw out an olive branch. Other than the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect and the Seven Kills sect, the rest of the sects clearly indicated that they only wanted Qin Yueshuang. Tang Ao laughed coldly in his heart. The strength that he had just displayed, although it could not be said to be very shocking, it was not something that a normal martial artist could compare to. His talent surpassed that of a normal person. The real goal of these people was to be able to recruit Qin Yueshuang into their sections. Once this rare purple myrtle Dao physique matured in the future, it would definitely shock everyone. Chapter 13. Tomorrow, we will set up an assessment site here and organize an elimination round. Only the last 3 will be accepted. I hope that the two of you can put aside your hatred for now. If you get injured now, it will be disadvantageous for tomorrow's assessment," said the seventh elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. He smiled at the two of them and turned to leave. After a short period of silence, there was a sudden uproar. Everyone was in an uproar once again. Qin Yueshuang stood motionless on the stage for a long time. She seemed to be thinking about something. However, there was an almost imperceptible trace of excitement in the depths of her eyes. "If you dare to come to the assessment tomorrow, I will kill you," Qin Yueshuang said fiercely. Her eyes were about to spit fire when she recalled Tang Ao's smirk when he called her a broken shoe. However, to be safe, she chose to call a truce. "We'll fight again tomorrow." Tang Ao did not say much. He turned around and left, but the meaning of his words was clear. Qin Yueshuang's beautiful face turned cold as she watched him disappear into the crowd. Qin Xingho and the others followed her and disappeared into the distance. The battle had ended just like that. Although it was exciting, they did not get to see the real ending. The crowd felt a little regretful. However, when they thought about how the assessment tomorrow would be even more exciting than this, their hearts were filled with anticipation. The crowd gradually dispersed. In just an hour, the news that the major sects had come to Bluestone City to recruit talents had spread throughout the streets and alleys. This is great. Brother Tang is not inferior to that broken shoe. I, Nangong Shui, am happy for you. In a private room of a restaurant, Tang Ao and Fatty Nangong were drinking and chatting merrily. As for Nangong Shui's 2 attendants, they were called to an inn by him to wait for his return. Oh, right, Brother Tang. I heard that the reason that girl from the Qin family was able to awaken the Destiny Crepe Myrtle Dao physique was because of the Destiny Stone you gave her. Nangong Shui looked at him strangely. Tang Ao nodded his head, appearing very calm. But when he thought about it carefully, he felt that it was a pity. Although the Destiny Stone was useless to him, he was still unwilling to let it go to Qin Yueshuang. However, Qin Yueshuang had completely fused with the Destiny Stone, so it was impossible for her to get it back. Even if he killed her, the Destiny Stone would disappear with her. Brother Tang is really magnanimous, Nangong Shui said with a smile, but it was not difficult to see that there was a trace of sarcasm in his words. Tang Ao shook his head and smiled helplessly. Nangong Shui poured a cup of wine for herself and said, I heard that there has been some chaos in the foreign battleground recently. Our family also has a batch of goods that needs to pass through there. I hope nothing bad happens. Tang Ao's heart stirred as he asked, Outer Realm? You mean those areas that don't belong to any country? Nangong Shui nodded and explained, the black-yellow continent is so vast that it's difficult for ordinary people to reach the end of their lives. If we don't use the teleportation formation, even cultivators who can fly in the air will have to work their whole lives to reach the end. The continent is too vast, but we don't have that many people. Therefore, many areas don't belong to any country. They're considered ungoverned areas, and wars happen all year round. Tang Ao nodded. He was very familiar with the black-yellow continent. The only difference was that some of the areas that belonged to his era no longer existed. Time was the most merciless. As the years passed, one era after another was eliminated. Beauties turned to bones, and geniuses turned to dust. The two of them talked for a long time, and Tang Ao had a deeper understanding of the Nangong family's power. This not only shocked him. Not only was the Nangong family one of the wealthiest business families on the continent, but their capital was also comparable to a small country on the black-yellow continent. Moreover, they had the most famous information network on the continent, which spread across the 5 regions. They even had informants in some of the outer regions. Although they were not a martial arts family, their foundation was not something that ordinary forces could violate. Brother Tang, what are your plans? Are you going to participate in the assessment tomorrow? Nangong Shui asked. Tang Ao thought for a while and finally nodded. If I can pass the assessment, I might join the 7 Kills sect. Although the chubby Nangong seemed careless, he was very shrewd. He was born into a business family, so how could he not have any schemes? As if she could read Tang Ao's mind, Nangong Shui smiled and said in a low voice, Brother Tang, are you going for the 7 Kills art? Tang Ao was startled. Although the 7 killing art wasn't a secret, Nangong Shui being able to guess his thoughts so quickly still made him a little surprised. Tang Ao nodded and did not explain further. He began to eat. Only when it was evening did the two of them slowly walk out of the restaurant. They came to the street and were about to part ways when a figure suddenly rushed over. Looking closely, it was one of Nangong Shui's attendants. After seeing Nangong Shui walk out of the restaurant, the attendant hurried to his side, whispered something in his ear, and then left. Brother Nangong, what's wrong? Tang Ao asked, noticing that Nangong Shui was looking at him strangely. Brother Tang, is my father in the city? Nangong Shui suddenly asked this strange question. Tang Ao was stunned at first, but then as if he thought of something, an ominous feeling welled up in his heart. You have to be mentally prepared. Nangang Shui looked at Tang Ao with a complicated expression and said, "Our family just sent news that our goods have arrived safely. However, they also sent another piece of news." Tang Ao did not say anything and waited for Nangang Shui to continue. At the same time, the haze in his heart darkened. Bluestone City's city lord was ambushed in the outer region battlefield. His fate is unknown, Nangang Shui said. Although the two of them had not known each other for long, they understood each other's family background. Boom! Like a bolt from the blue, Tang Ao's body became unsteady and his vision darkened, nearly falling to the ground. In that instant, he thought of something and pieces of fragmented memories began to piece together. So Uncle Fu already knew. Tang Ao muttered to himself, his voice trembling. He thought of the time when he went alone to find the Qin family. Qin Wudao suddenly gave the order to kill him without any hesitation. He also thought of the scene from a few days ago, when the city lord's mansion's soldiers neatly lined up and disappeared at the city gates. "Brother Tang, are you all right?" Seeing Tang Ao in such a state, Nangang Shui couldn't help but sigh and comfort him. Tang Ao was a bit absent-minded. He instinctively bade farewell to Nangang Shui, then turned around and left in a daze. "Father is dead. Father is dead." Along the way, Tang Ao only had these words in his mind. Only when he arrived at the city lord's mansion did he slowly wake up. "Young master, you're back." Uncle Fu came to greet him from afar. Tang Ao raised his head to take a look. Suddenly, he discovered that Uncle Fu seemed to have aged a lot in the past few days. His white hair was even thicker, and his pair of swollen eyes indicated that he had not slept for several days. "Uncle Fu, where's father?" Tang Ao's voice was somewhat hoarse, and his eyes had lost their luster as he stared blankly at Uncle Fu. Hearing this, Uncle Fu's body trembled. After a long time, his eyes reddened, and he said, "Young master, you already know." Chapter 14. Young master, don't despair. The letter only said that the old master's whereabouts are unknown. As for what exactly happened, we can't jump to conclusions. Furthermore, I've already sent people to support him. Uncle Fu said somewhat sadly as he looked at Tang Ao's lonely back. "I want to invite the outer realm to search for my father," Tang Ao suddenly said, his eyes slightly red and swollen. Uncle Fu was shocked and hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. "Young master, you mustn't. I've already heard about the sect assessment tomorrow. The most important thing is for you to rest well so that you can pass the assessment tomorrow. You have to know that this is the old master's wish. Although he knows that you don't know how to cultivate, the old master has always had this wish in his heart. Now that you can cultivate and your talent is outstanding, how can you let go of this hard-to-come-by opportunity? I will arrange for the old master's matter. Young master, you just need to focus on participating in the assessment. Don't be too sad. After all, no one can prove that the old master has really been killed." Uncle Fu's expression was anxious as he said a lot in one breath. He was really afraid that if Tang Ao got agitated and really headed to the outer realm, it would be even more troublesome. Sigh. In the end, Tang Ao nodded. He wasn't a child and had a clear judgment in his heart. After a sleepless night, Tang Ao sat alone in his room. Early in the morning, when the sun had just risen, he began to wash up. Today was the day of the assessment. After a night of rest, Tang Ao had also adjusted his state of mind. He was very clear that with his current strength, if he went to the outer realm, not to mention finding his father, it would be difficult for him to even protect himself. Right now, the only thing he could do was to properly adjust and wait for the assessment to pass. It was the common wish of him and his father. "Uncle Fu, I'm leaving." As soon as he left, Tang Ao saw Uncle Fu, who had woken up early to begin his morning cultivation. "Young master, I can't accompany you. Don't worry and go for the assessment. I'll do my best to find him." Uncle Fu comforted him. Tang Ao nodded and walked straight out of the city lord's mansion. Once again arriving at the street where the martial stage was, Tang Ao discovered that the number of onlookers today was frightening. It was several times more than yesterday. Moreover, he found that most of the cultivators in the city had come, and most of them were young men and women. Needless to say, these people were here to participate in the assessment. In the face of the holy land that all cultivators yearned for, the second sect in the Eastern Domain, the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect, who wouldn't be tempted? One had to know that the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect was not only famous for its strength. Once one was selected, it would mean that they would no longer lack any secret techniques or cultivation techniques. They would even be nurtured by some of the most powerful cultivators in the continent. Tang Ao was no exception, even though his understanding of martial arts in his previous life was still fresh in his memory. However, he was no longer who he was in the past. Everything now had to start from scratch. Tang Ao frowned. From the moment he entered the street, he had been squeezing his way through the crowd. He was like a loach, constantly twisting his body. His seemingly casual dodging posture was not ordinary at all. This could also be considered a cultivation technique. Usually, it was used to avoid enemy attacks, but now, it was being used by Tang Ao to squeeze through the crowd. Although this was not a peerless cultivation technique, it could be considered as using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. 50 meters away from the martial arts arena, two old men stood parallel to each other. In front of them, there was a blue barrier blocking the crowd. This is the first checkpoint. Those who are under 20 years of age and can pass it can proceed to the second checkpoint. Behind the barrier, one of the two old men spoke. His voice was full of vicissitudes, but it was very serious and could not be refuted. This kind of assessment was very rare. Most people would directly enter the assessment field, and after a demonstration, the examiner would carry out the trial. Tang Ao was not too surprised. On the way here, he had already heard some news. Because of the sudden incident after the appearance of Qin Yueshuang's Destiny Purple Myrtle Dao Constitution, many sects arrived at the same time, wanting to fight for this good seedling. In the end, after the most prestigious sects in the Eastern Domain held a discussion, they unanimously decided to resolve this peacefully. The students who participated in the assessment would go through an elimination competition, and then each sect would make a decision according to the actual situation. Of course, those who participated in this discussion were all large sections. The small sects who came were directly ignored by them. This kind of rule was very cruel, but it was very realistic. The weak were prey to the strong. This was the most basic rule in the black-yellow continent. In front of the blue barrier, Tang Ao only looked at it quietly, and the ancient god moving sky technique in his body began to circulate slowly. His body shone with a gentle glow. Pop! With one step, Tang Ao walked in very easily. On the blue barrier, there were ripples like the surface of water. The two old men looked at him with a slightly surprised look, as if they had not expected that someone would be able to pass the first test so easily. After entering the blue barrier, Tang Ao was a little surprised. He felt that he had arrived early enough. However, after entering here, he found that there were already more than 10 people who had passed the first checkpoint. Tang Ao was a little surprised. Although he had passed the first checkpoint easily, he also knew that it had a certain level of difficulty. It was a test of one's current cultivation strength and the potential of one's body. On the way here, he had noticed that there were at least a few hundred people who had come to take the test. He did not expect that there would be less than 20 people who had passed the first checkpoint. Qin Yueshuang. Tang Ao's heart skipped a beat. He saw that Qin Yueshuang was watching him from afar. She had arrived here long ago. Suddenly, Tang Ao seemed to have noticed something. He turned his head and glanced at the 10 people who had passed the first checkpoint. Damn it! Tang Ao cursed in a low voice. He recognized these people. Apart from himself, they were all disciples of the Qin family. Even Qin Xingho was among them. Something's wrong, Tang Ao thought to himself. When he saw the 10 people from the Qin family looking at him with ill intentions, his gaze turned cold. Not to mention the others, just Qin Xingho alone. On the way here, Tang Ao had noticed at least 3 people whose cultivation was higher than his. However, these people had not passed the first checkpoint. Qin Xingho's strength was not high. and his talent was very average. Since he was able to pass the first checkpoint, it was obvious. These 10 people from the Qin family had all relied on Qin Yueshuang to take the shortcut. For the sake of a Destiny crepe myrtle physique, you guys have really put in a lot of effort. Tang Ao mocked in his heart. However, he was not afraid. His cold gaze swept across the 10 people from the Qin family. Qin Yueshuang did not speak from beginning to end. She only glanced at him calmly before turning her gaze elsewhere. It was as if she was thinking about something. As for Qin Xingho and the others, there was a hint of meaning in their eyes. However, it all disappeared in a flash. After advancing to the second level of the body tempering realm, Tang Ao's sixth sense was extremely sensitive. All the minute changes were captured by his eyes. Tang Ao's heart sank. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. All right, there are a total of 16 people who have passed the checkpoint. Next, all spectators, please do not approach this area. Stay where you are and watch. Otherwise, if you are injured, you will have to bear the consequences. One of the two elders who was supporting the blue barrier spoke. Then, they looked at each other and withdrew their hands. The blue barrier in front of them also gradually disappeared. Chapter 15. Under the arrangement of the elder, Tang Ao came to the side of the Qin clan disciples. As soon as he turned around, he saw a familiar figure, Fatty Nangong. Tang Ao smiled at him, but did not greet him. Now is not the time to joke around. The dozen or so people eyeing him covetously were all enemies to him. Then let me announce the rules. Suddenly, a voice rang out and a few elders walked out from the side of the battling platform. Tang Ao recognized them at a glance. They were the elders of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect, Seven Kills Sect, and the other sections. They had discussed it together, and only then did they come up with such a special test. After our discussion, the Seven Kills Sect and the Heavenly Moon Sect will accept one person. The Heavenly Star Sacred Sect will accept 2 people. Therefore, there are a total of 4 people. Next, you will have to compete one-on-one. The winner will advance, and the loser will be eliminated. The remaining 4 people will be considered to have passed the assessment. The 7th elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect explained. As he spoke, he glanced at Qin Yueshuang with a pair of deep eyes. Last night, the 7th elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect went to the Qin clan alone, hoping to decide on Qin Yueshuang to enter the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. However, the other party demanded that besides Qin Yueshuang, there must be another person, 2 Qin clan disciples. The Qin clan's appetite was not small, but it was because they saw that the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect was determined to obtain the Ziwei physique that they dared to say such a thing. If it was in the past, even if they kowtowed 100 times, they might not be able to be selected, let alone raise conditions. In the end, the 7th elder agreed and even deliberately obstructed Tang Ao. Because he had seen the battle between Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang that day, he knew that there was more or less a grudge between the two. Therefore, he wanted to stabilize the Qin clan's heart. In the end, the Qin clan also agreed. Qin Yueshuang would eventually choose the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. The arena instantly fell into a short period of silence. Next, 2 people to a group, a total of 8 groups. The winner stays and the loser leaves. The elder of the Heavenly Moon Sect said. Then, they began to pair up with each other. Tang Ao watched from afar as the elders whispered to each other from time to time. He sneered in his heart. From the way the 7th elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect looked at Qin Yueshuang, he could more or less guess that there was something fishy going on between the two of them. However, he was not afraid. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, even if they had some kind of conspiracy, they couldn't act shamelessly for no reason. One had to know that these 3 sects were almost as famous as the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. They were all ranked in the top 5 sects in the Eastern Domain. Their reputations were very high, and their face and reputation were very important to them. Finally, after some discussion, they came up with a list. Qin Jiang, Qin Tai, Qin Yueshuang, Qin Zhong, Tang Ao, Qin Feng. After the names of all 8 groups were read out, the audience immediately went into an uproar. Oomph. I don't know what tricks the Qin clan played this time to actually bribe so many disciples to come here. There are only 4 spots in total. It seems like the Qin clan wants to take all of them. In the crowd, some of the cultivators who had been plotted against whispered. Only now did they realize that they had been tricked. However, because the Qin clan was powerful, they could only swallow their resentment. Some people had even begun to secretly support Tang Ao, hoping that he could advance to the next round and suppress the Qin clan's prestige. Next, please begin the competition. The elders all stepped down from the stage and stood to the side, watching the battle. Tang Ao did not go up first. The ones who stayed on the stage were the 2 disciples of the Qin clan, neither of whom he knew. Bam! The 2 disciples of the Qin clan did not even say a word. They just looked at each other and smiled, then immediately began the battle. Bam! I admit defeat. What caused the spectators nearby to be dumbfounded was that after the 2 of them exchanged a probing blow, one of them directly admitted defeat and silently walked down the stage. Qin clan, can you be any more King fake? You sent so many people up to make up the numbers. Do you think we are all idiots? Nangong Shui said indignantly in the crowd. Not only her, everyone thought the same at that moment. Faintly, some people had already begun to doubt the Qin clan, which they originally revered. Without surprise, other than Tang Ao's group, the other 7 groups of disciples of the Qin clan were all the same as the first group. They fought with each other as if they were playing house. Then one person took the initiative to admit defeat. Tang Ao laughed coldly in his heart. Right now, he could already be completely sure that there was definitely something wrong with this assessment. Faced with this situation, other than the elder of the 7 Kills sect who sighed slightly, the 2 elders of the Heavenly Star Sacred sect and the Heavenly Moon sect were extremely calm, as if they had already guessed the outcome. If that's the case, then I can only personally send you home. Tang Ao walked up the stage and looked at the opponents in front of him. He could not help but coldly say in his heart, although I'm also here to make up the numbers, if I can beat you half to death before I leave, then this trip will not be in vain, right? Suddenly, the youth of the Qin clan, named Qin Feng, said in a low voice. Tang Ao ignored him and coldly snorted. His gaze was as cold as ice, and a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Begin. As soon as the voice fell, Tang Ao instantly made his move. Now, excluding Qin Yueshuang, the remaining people here, other than Qin Xingho, were all very strong. Of course, compared to Tang Ao, there was still a huge gap. It seemed that the Qin clan was not really stupid. When they were making up the numbers, they still selectively left behind the stronger ones. Bam! As soon as he was born, Tang Ao made his move. The ancient god moves the heavens quickly, circulated, and a majestic qi began to flow in his body and gather on his hands. Boom! 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 Tang Ao waved both of his hands and slammed them forward. He consecutively unleashed multiple palm silhouettes. Qin Feng's expression changed slightly as he felt the power contained in these palm silhouettes. His heart shook. He did not meet the attack head-on. Instead, he hurriedly dodged because he knew very well that he could not defend against this kind of power. Qin Feng, you are not his opponent. Step down. On the side, Qin Yueshuang suddenly spoke and stopped Qin Feng, who was in the midst of dodging. On the battle stage, Qin Feng's face was filled with unwillingness. Even though he heard that Tang Ao had mysteriously learned how to cultivate recently, he did not expect that a person who had only learned how to cultivate for a few days could be this powerful. Looking at the approaching Tang Ao, Qin Feng felt helpless. He hesitated and finally decided to give up. If not, there would be no point in continuing. However, just as he was about to open his mouth to admit defeat, he suddenly felt a heavy blow on his cheek before he could even finish his sentence. Buzz! Qin Feng did not understand what was going on. Under this heavy blow, he was forced to swallow his words back into his stomach, and his mind was in a daze. Tang Ao sneered. After Qin Yueshuang finished speaking, he attacked even more frequently. Want to leave? You will have to wait until I am satisfied. Tang Ao mocked. His eyes were filled with ridicule. You. Qin Feng woke up and touched the shoe print on his face. A burst of burning pain made him grind his teeth. Looking at Tang Ao's bare foot, he almost fainted from anger. Qin Yueshuang and the others who were watching from afar were dumbfounded. They did not expect that Tang Ao would use a shoe as a weapon. Chapter 16. Qin Yueshuang's face was ashen. She was very clear that Qin Feng was not Tang Ao's opponent, but that guy didn't even give him the chance to admit defeat. I admit. A heavy fist smashed down. Qin Feng's words were knocked back into his stomach, and he let out a scream. He endured the pain and stood up. This time, before Qin Feng could open his mouth, the sole of a big foot rapidly enlarged in his eyes, and with a smacking sound, it hit his face. Qin Feng, who fell to the ground, screamed. He hugged his head and struggled. The continuous attacks on his body almost made him faint from the pain. At this moment, not only were the spectators dumbfounded, even the sect elder's eyes twitched. Looking at Tang Ao, who was like a third-rate hooligan, pressing Qin Feng to the ground and riding on his body, he held the sole of a shoe in his hand and madly smashed his body. For a moment, everyone didn't know what to say. What kind of fighting method was this? Qin Feng at this moment was simply suffocating to death. Originally, they had discussed that other than Qin Yueshuang, no matter who fought against Tang Ao, they would directly withdraw. But he didn't want to do so. He held on to the idea that if he beat this trash, he would be valued by the family. So he chose to resist. But now, even if he wanted to admit defeat, he didn't have a chance. As long as he opened his mouth, Tang Ao would raise the sole of his shoe and madly slap his mouth. Until now, his head was swollen like a pig's head, and his lips were like sausages. He couldn't speak clearly. The more Tang Ao hit, the more energetic he became. The sole of a shoe in his hand that was infused with true energy was harder than a brick. At this moment, Tang Ao was simply bursting with feeling. Stop! The seventh elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect couldn't stand it anymore. He glanced at the Qin clan's disciples, whose eyes were spewing fire, and hurriedly stood up to stop them. Tang Ao had no choice but to stop. Only when the seventh elder helplessly announced the result did he reveal a bright smile to Qin Feng. Then he picked up the shoe and put it on his foot. Puff! Seeing Tang Ao's despicable smile, Qin Feng couldn't take it anymore. His chest congealed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood before fainting. Good. Fatty Nangong, who was not far away, was extremely pleased. He kept clapping and cheering, scaring the surrounding people into taking a few steps back, afraid that they would be implicated by him. On the other side, the Qin clan's disciples looked at the smiling Nangong Shui and gritted their teeth so hard that they almost shattered. However, they all knew the identity of this person and couldn't afford to offend him. Thus, they could only vent their anger on Tang Ao, who was on the stage. Bam! Staring at the Qin clan's disciples who wanted to carry Qin Feng back, Tang Ao directly turned and sent Qin Feng flying with a kick. The Qin clan disciples who were caught off guard were directly smashed by Qin Feng's body. With a boom, all of them fell backwards. No need to thank me. Tang Ao smiled slightly and waved his hand at them. Next, without waiting for the sect elders to start, Tang Ao directly spoke on the stage with an extremely arrogant attitude. The Qin clan disciples almost spat out blood. Next, the opponent was completely treating them as worthless cabbages. Qin Yueshuang's face was also red. Her calm heart was rippling as she looked at Tang Ao with a trace of anger in her beautiful eyes. Among the crowd, Qin Wudao also came. At this moment, he was somewhat regretful. He secretly thought that he shouldn't have sent so many disciples to make up the numbers. This time, he really lost a lot of face. On the side, the seventh elder of the Heavenly Star Sect and the third elder of the Heavenly Moon Sect looked at Tang Ao with unfriendly expressions. On the other hand, the elder of the Seven Kills Sect looked at Tang Ao with interest. Now, the 8 of us will once again be divided into, wait a moment, The seventh elder of the Heavenly Star sect suddenly interrupted the elder of the Heavenly Moon sect and said, "If we participate together, how about we directly change it to a battle royale?" Seeing the elders of the Heavenly Moon sect and the Seven Kills sect frown slightly, the seventh elder explained, "This way, not only can we see their overall strength, we can also understand their ability to quickly analyze and act in group battles. Because of some reasons, we all came rather suddenly. The assessment was also decided on the spot. Therefore, the strength and potential that they can display is not comprehensive. In a one-on-one battle, these people's strengths are about the same. At most, both sides will be injured and one person will win by luck." The seventh elder continuously explained. He did not hide his voice because not only did the two elders hear it, but even Tang Ao and the spectators also heard it. Hearing this, many people nodded their heads, thinking that it was somewhat reasonable. However, in his heart, Tang Ao cursed, "You despicable and shameless old fart. You really have something going on with the Qin clan. You put it nicely, but don't you just want them to gang up on me? And their strengths are about the same? Other than me and Qin Yueshuang, there are only 3 F** king rookies at the first layer of the body-tempering realm. You really know how to say it." In the crowd, Nangong Shui also felt that it was unfair. His mind was meticulous, and he also saw some clues. He immediately opened his mouth and cursed. "What kind of rubbish is this Heavenly Star sect? They obviously have no good intentions. You're so open and above board, even when you're scamming people. F***CKU. Damn you." Nangong Shui's spittle flew everywhere as he pointed at the battle stage. However, the scene was too noisy, and the battle stage could not be heard clearly. Behind him, the two attendants also felt a headache. They constantly reminded Nangong Shui to be careful, just in case. However, they were all ignored by Nangong Shui. He cursed the seventh elder's 18 ancestors in one go. Good, that's good too. In the end, the agreement was reached. The battle stage was the center. Regardless of who won or lost, anyone who fell off the stage would be considered eliminated. In this way, the 7 people from the Qin clan immediately became spirited. Each of them rolled up their sleeves and walked towards Tang Ao with evil intentions. Tang Ao snorted coldly. He was very clear that the ultimate goal of these people was only for Qin Yueshuang's destiny crate, Myrtle Dao physique. If it was not for fighting over her, why would there be a need for an assessment? The so-called assessment was nothing more than a formality. However, Tang Ao did not give up. Since they all felt that it was just a formality, then he would accompany them to the end. Before the 7th elder turned around, he glanced at Tang Ao and revealed a meaningful smile. Then, he turned around and walked down the battle stage. Although everyone knew what was going to happen next, when the spectators saw the 7 people from the Qin clan standing in a straight line against Tang Ao alone, they still felt a little shocked. Without exception, at this moment, everyone felt that Tang Ao was finished. He had just tortured Qin Feng so miserably and didn't even give him a chance to admit defeat. Now that the wind and water had turned, it was probably his turn to be unlucky. Tang Ao's expression was cold as he stared at Qin Yueshuang's group of 7. He did not dare to be careless. Although the strength of these 6 Qin clan's descendants was not that great, and he could deal with them, if Qin Yueshuang joined the fray, it would be a little troublesome. Tang Ao did not believe that this peerless beauty in front of him was really a goddess. She was pure and upright. He knew better than anyone else how deep this woman's schemes ran. If you admit defeat now, oh no, if you kneel and beg for mercy, then kowtow to my sister and admit you were wrong. Then maybe I can spare your life. Qin Xinghua clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Every time he thought about how he was beaten up by Tang Ao in front of everyone, he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Tang Ao glanced at him and let out a hollow laugh. What? Are you itching for a beating again? Chapter 17. Qin Yueshuang's expression was ugly as well. Tang Ao's words had indirectly reminded her of yesterday's scene. When she thought of being called a slut, She was so angry that her body trembled. Not far away, when the 7 kills sex elder saw that it was a 1 versus 7 situation, he frowned slightly and wanted to stop it. However, when he saw that Tang Ao was not afraid at all, and there was even a hint of fanaticism in his eyes, as if he was eager to give it a try, he gave up on that thought and watched quietly. "Begin," the 7 kills sex elder said. His eyes were almost squinting into a line. He knew that the Destiny purple Myrtle Dow physique was his. "Kill." The 7 from the Qin clan moved at the same time, charging at Tang Ao. Tang Ao knew that things were not going well. He did not expect that Qin Yueshuang would be faster than anyone else and be the first to attack him. Seeing Qin Yueshuang charging at him, Tang Ao suddenly said, "Slut, I don't want you anymore. Why do you keep pestering me?" Qin Yueshuang's body suddenly stiffened as she stopped there. Her delicate body trembled violently, and 2 flames seemed to be shooting out of her eyes. Bam! Tang Ao was not in the mood to really compete with her. A true strong person did not just rely on strength, but also an unshakable heart. He used this to disrupt Qin Yueshuang's heart, causing her to lose her calm, and for a moment, she was dazed. And it was in this instant that Tang Ao seized the opportunity, turning around and giving a roundhouse kick. Because of Qin Yueshuang's backing, the disciples of the Qin clan acted as though they had been injected with chicken blood. Just as Qin Yueshuang was about to regroup, a young man overtook her and rushed to the front. However, before the smile on his face could bloom, it instantly froze. Immediately after, he felt a huge impact on his abdomen, and his body flew out uncontrollably, smashing into the crowd of spectators. "You haven't even reached the body refining realm, and you still want to stand out?" Tang Ao said coldly. He instantly finished off the weakest person in the Qin clan. In the next moment, Qin Yueshuang came to an understanding as well, and she was shocked in her heart. Only now did she realize that she'd fallen into a trap, and he was merely trying to disturb her state of mind. However, by the time she reacted, it was already too late. Tang Ao had used his full strength from the very beginning. Although there were many small fries among these people, there was a great disparity between their strength and his. However, there was still Qin Yueshuang, who had awakened the Destiny Z-Wei. After a successful attack, Tang Ao did not have any intention of stopping. Although the second young man was shocked, he could no longer stop his feet. In a panic, the young man raised his arms to block the attack. However, one was a hasty defense, while the other was a deliberate attack. Coupled with the difference in strength of one layer, the result was self-evident. In just one exchange, Tang Ao broke through the young man's defense. His left fist smashed out, hitting the young man's abdomen. The inertia of the rapid sprint, coupled with the heavy punch, caused the young man to instantly stop his body. He instinctively bent over and covered his abdomen. Tang Ao did a beautiful turn, raised his left leg, and slightly bent his ankle. Then he waved his right hand, grabbed one of his shoes, took off the shoe, and held it in his hand. The entire set of actions was done in one go. Pah! A big slap flew over, and the young man was directly smacked off the battling platform by the sole of the shoe. This strike was infused with dense inner strength by Tang Ao, and it directly knocked him out. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. Many people had yet to react, and 2 of the Qin clan's disciples were already eliminated. "This guy is still the best," Tang Ao said with a smile. Once again, the feeling was off the charts. Chi! A beam of light shot out, blocking Tang Ao's third attack. Qin Yueshuang had already calmed down. She stretched out her slender arm and waved, stopping the other 4 people. She looked coldly at Tang Ao. "You have completely infuriated me," Qin Yueshuang said coldly. "So what?" Tang Ao stopped his attack and responded calmly. His eyes were overflowing with killing intent. "Today, you will definitely not pass the assessment," Qin Yueshuang said calmly. There was a complicated look in her eyes. She looked at Tang Ao and said, "Leave and continue to be the son of the city lord. The path of a cultivator is full of ups and downs. This is not your path. Qin Yueshuang was very confident. She had completely gotten rid of the anger in her heart and was as calm as water. Her words were filled with a strong sense of self-confidence. After fusing with the Destiny Stone and awakening the Myrtle Tao Constitution, her eyes were no longer limited to the battle between her peers. However, Tang Ao wanted to laugh for no reason. The path of a cultivator was not a path that he could walk. What a joke. The height that I stood at in my previous life, if I gave you 10 times the time, could you catch up? Tang Ao sneered in his heart. Say what you want, but none of these people today will pass the assessment. Tang Ao's words were firm and sonorous. He glanced at the people behind Qin Yueshuang, and his eyes flashed with ridicule. It turns out that the juniors of Qin clan grew up in the embrace of a broken shoe. This sentence could be said to have hit the nail on the head. The 4 people standing behind Qin Yueshuang were livid. However, they knew that without Qin Yueshuang, even if they attacked together, they would not necessarily win. The gap was too big. Even the eyes of Qin Yueshuang, who had just calmed down, twitched when she heard this. However, she quickly calmed down, and her beautiful eyes were as calm as an ancient well. Tang Ao was a little surprised, but before he could speak again, a powerful fluctuation in the surroundings became more and more obvious. The surface of Qin Yueshuang's body was glowing, as if there was a purple galaxy revolving around her. The void above her head vibrated, and a purple moon floated in the air, emitting a dazzling light. You can't do it! Qin Yueshuang, who had displayed the Myrtle Tao Constitution, became even more confident at this moment. At the same time, the eyes of the sect elders not far away were unblinkingly staring at Qin Yueshuang, as if they had seen a mountain of gold. However, the eyes of the elder of the 7 Kills sect moved back and forth between Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang from time to time, as if he was thinking about something. The Myrtle Tao Constitution can't be found in the 8th heaven of the vast thousand world. The 7th elder seemed a little excited, and his voice trembled slightly as he spoke. If she can be properly nurtured with secret techniques and martial techniques, she will be invincible in the future. The elder of the Heavenly Moon sect had a serious expression on his face. However, before the onlookers and the elders recovered from a shock, another powerful aura filled the surroundings. The aura of killing. What a strong killing intent. This is a blood spear that has experienced hundreds of battles and has an inextinguishable killing intent. The 3 sect elders, as well as the middle-aged and elderly people who had come with them, were also shocked at this moment. The degree of shock was no less than that of Qin Yueshuang's Myrtle Tao Constitution. At this moment, a blood-stained spear floated in the air above Tang Ao's head. The spear's shaft was rusty, but the spear's blade emitted an eerie, bone-chilling cold light. There were also a few bright red bloodstains on it, as if it had just returned from the battlefield with the enemy's blood that had not dried up. Qin Yueshuang was a little shocked. She could not react to what she saw in front of her. You've actually awakened a life spirit. Qin Yueshuang asked with a complicated expression. The bloodstained spear exuded a thick murderous aura, which made her feel a little uncomfortable. This was a very shocking scene. A young girl in snow-white clothes was wrapped in a galaxy, and a purple moon hung above her head, emitting a bright light. She was as pure and holy as a fairy. A young man in a black robe clenched his fists tightly, and his face was resolute. Above his head, a blood-stained spear emitted light, and the thick killing intent made people shudder. The holy maiden against the demon lord. Chapter 18. This kid is not as simple as he looks. In the crowd, Nangong Shui, who was still worried about Tang Ao, squinted her eyes and said, not far away, the elder of 7 Kills sect who had been secretly observing Tang Ao also revealed a meaningful smile and said in a low voice, as expected, kill. Kill. Qin Yueshuang and Tang Ao attacked at the same time. The purple moon and the 100 battle spear soul seemed to have their own consciousness at this moment. They left their heads and formed another battlefield in mid-air. Bam! Both palms met. Tang Ao and Qin Yueshuang took a blow head-on. On the side, Qin Xingho and the others were already dumbfounded. Looking at Tang Ao, who was surrounded by a murderous aura, they had a feeling that the person in front of them was like a demon in hibernation. Boom! Suddenly, the 100 Battles spear soul in mid-air exploded with a wave of energy. Like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, a thick murderous aura mixed with the aura of death swept out in all directions. Qin Xingho and the others immediately felt a stinging pain on their skin. It was as if a huge rock was pressing down on their chests, making it hard for them to breathe. As Qin Yueshuang shouted, the Milky Way around her quickly condensed into a fitting light armor that covered her body and blocked the wave of energy. Swoosh! In midair, the 100 Battles spear soul suddenly changed direction. Under the control of Tang Ao's will, it unexpectedly slashed at Qin Yueshuang. Qin Yueshuang was shocked. She quickly recalled the purple moon to defend against the attack of the 100 Battles spear soul. However, the corner of Tang Ao's mouth curled up. He put two fingers together and drew an arc. The 100 Battles spear soul that was heading straight for Qin Yueshuang suddenly changed direction and hit a disciple of the Qin family not far away. Puff! Before the disciple could react, his arm was pierced. His body flew out, and a large amount of blood spurted out from his mouth in midair. Although he was lucky that he did not fly out of the stage, he fainted. Even if this attack couldn't take his life, it would at least leave him half crippled. How dare you? Qin Yueshuang was furious. She didn't expect Tang Ao to suddenly change his target. Why wouldn't I dare? Tang Ao shouted. Once again, he controlled the 100 Battles spear soul and slashed it towards Qin Xinghua. At this moment, Qin Xinghua had long since lost his ability to judge. In his eyes, the person before him seemed to have transformed into a devil lord that was covered in a sea of blood and swept through the world. Looking at the long spear that was slashing towards him, Qin Xingho actually forgot to dodge. There was only fear in his heart. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Qin Yueshuang appeared in front of him. A purple moon flew across the sky and collided with the 100 Battles spear soul, blocking this attack. You actually know how to protect your companions? Tang Ao laughed mockingly. Secretly, the ancient god-moving sky technique was activated. Inside his body, all 365 major meridians lit up at the same time. The pattern that connected one of the major meridians lit up and shone brightly. In midair, the 100 Battles spear soul trembled and continuously emitted clanging sounds. It was as if it had materialized. The originally blurry parts were now clearer and clearer, as if they were real. At the same time, in his chi sea, the hazy jade-colored object spun faster and faster, as if it was trying to break out of his body. Shocked, Tang Ao hurriedly used his internal energy to suppress it. Right now, he didn't want his secret to be exposed. Qin Yueshuang frowned. The blurry purple moon above her head was a stark contrast to Tang Ao's lifelike 100 Battles spear soul. Materialization of the life spirit. On the side, after seeing the lifelike 100 Battles spear soul above Tang Ao's head, the elder of 7 Kills sect suddenly stood up. His deep eyes shot out 2 rays of light as he looked at the blood-stained spear. So that's how it is. After a few breaths, he retracted his gaze, sat down, and muttered to himself. However, when he looked at Tang Ao, his gaze was filled with mysteriousness. Boom! The 100 Battles spear soul suddenly exploded with a powerful aura, piercing towards Qin Yueshuang. Tang Ao didn't stay idle either. While controlling the 100 Battles spear soul, he himself charged towards Qin Xingho and the others. How dare you? Qin Yueshuang was enraged. She wanted to stop him, but at this moment, the 100 Battles spear soul no longer attacked the purple moon. Instead, it changed its direction and blocked in front of her. These 4 people, I have to throw them all out at once. Otherwise, the sect's elders will definitely stop me. At this moment, Tang Ao was calculating in his heart. He gave up on defense and used the 100-battle spear soul to take a blow from the purple moon to successfully stop Qin Yueshuang. Only 4 people were selected. Tang Ao knew that if one more person was eliminated, the assessment would be over. However, he didn't want it to end like this. As he watched Qin Shingho and the others approaching him, he was considering how to throw them off. This was because he wasn't confident that he could eliminate Qin Yueshuang. Even if he could win, he was afraid that Tang Ao would have to fight in a way that would injure both sides. Therefore, as long as Qin Shingho and the others were eliminated, only he and Qin Yueshuang would be left. Even though he couldn't stop her, killing so many Qin family disciples was already not bad. I have to be fast. Tang Ao gritted his teeth. He controlled the 100-battle spear soul to give up on defense and endured a few rounds of attacks from the purple moon to block Qin Yueshuang. However, the fate spirit was closely related to one's body. When the fate spirit was attacked, he also suffered some indirect damage. However, the ancient God-moving sky technique had cushioned most of the impact, so it didn't cause any serious damage. This guy doesn't want to live. Nangong Shui was speechless when she saw Tang Ao's method of eliminating the Qin family disciples even at the risk of getting injured. She began to worry for him. Get out of my way. Finally, Qin Shingho and the others came to their senses. Although they were terrified, Qin Yueshuang was being blocked by the 100-battle spear soul. They had no choice but to rely on themselves. Find 2 people and leave immediately. At the critical moment, Qin Yueshuang suddenly opened her mouth and shouted at Qin Shingho and the rest. However, because of her carelessness, there was a temporary gap in her defense. She was hit by the 100-battle spear soul and staggered backward. One of the Qin family disciples immediately reacted. As long as one more person was eliminated, the assessment would be over. He immediately opened his mouth to admit defeat. However, why would Tang Ao give him a chance? Before the person arrived, the soles of his shoes arrived first. Slap! A crisp sound was heard. The soles of Tang Ao's shoes landed accurately on the young man's face, causing him to swallow his words. Split up. Qin Shingho reacted slightly. Although he was terrified, he did not lose his rationality. He immediately called for his companions to split up and put a certain distance between them. Tang Ao was a little surprised. He did not expect Qin Shingho, who was scared out of his wits, to be able to make a decision in such a short time. He knew that it was impossible to eliminate 4 people at once. However, Tang Ao already had a plan in his heart. Qin Shingho was Qin Yueshuang's blood-related younger brother. The Qin clan must have been bribed by him. Therefore, Tang Ao's thoughts changed, and his first target was Qin Xinghua. Qin Shingho was furious. Seeing Tang Ao charging at him, he was at a loss and forgot to attack. Bam! Tang Ao immediately lashed out with a kick, sending Qin Shingho flying 3 meters away. How dare you? At the same time, other than the unconscious young man, the other 2 Qin family disciples were enraged and tried to help. Chapter 19. What are you trying to do? Qin Shingho's eyes were filled with fear. His last defeat had left an indelible shadow in his heart. Tang Ao did not say a word. He smiled maliciously at Qin Shingho. Under Qin Shingho's horrified gaze, he took off his other shoe and smashed it on Qin Shingho's head. Qin Shingho screamed and ran away. Stop! Qin Yueshuang shouted angrily. She had a bad feeling about this. She used all her strength to repel the 100-battle soul spear and turned to help Qin Shingho. However, she was still a step too late. Seeing that Qin Yueshuang was truly infuriated, Tang Ao didn't dare to play around anymore. He revolved the true energy within his body as he executed a roundhouse kick. This kick landed right on Qin Shingho's crotch and sent him flying. This time, Qin Shingho did not even have the chance to scream. He felt a pain in his lower body. His vision went black and he fainted. Qin Yueshuang was furious. She did not expect Tang Ao to have grown to such an extent. The 5 of them attacked together, but not only did they not eliminate Tang Ao he eliminated one of them. Bang! Puffed. Even after taking a hit from Qin Yueshuang, Tang Ao did not stop. His chest heated up and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He controlled the 100-battle soul spear again and tried to stop her. In the next moment, Tang Ao found Qin Jiang. He was the strongest person besides Qin Yueshuang. His cultivation had reached the first level of body tempering. Through the true yuan in his body, Tang Ao could feel that he had 1 foot in the second level of body tempering. As expected, after facing Qin Jiang, Tang Ao felt a trace of pressure. He was not like Qin Xingho, who could chase after him and beat him up. However, Tang Ao, who had awakened a life spirit, had reached the second level of body tempering. He could even fight a third celestial layer expert, let alone Qin Jiang, who was 1 level lower than him. Although he was under a certain amount of pressure, after a few rounds, Qin Jiang was still hit by Tang Ao's big mouth. Several of his front teeth were broken, and he spat out a bunch of blood as he fell off the stage. Gotcha! At the same time, the 100-battle spear soul in the air was completely shattered by Qin Yueshuang, turning into light and shadow and disappearing. Pooh! Tang Ao's vision darkened, and he almost fainted. He bit the tip of his tongue and resisted the urge to fall. Although he had the protection of the ancient god, moves the sky to cushion most of the damage, he still couldn't take Qin Yueshuang's all-out attacks. His body was already at its limit. The test is over. Finally, a voice rang out and stopped Qin Yueshuang, who was about to attack Tang Ao. She had no choice but to stop in her tracks unwillingly. At this moment, the entire place was silent. Everyone was still immersed in the shock of what had just happened. 1 against 7. Not only did he not lose, he even eliminated 3 people. One of them was even severely injured and unconscious, lying motionless on the stage. After a short moment of silence, a deafening uproar broke out. Tang Ao, among the crowd, Qin Wudao clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he stared at the figure in front of him and said through gritted teeth, "This was too unexpected." This was completely out of Qin Wudao's expectations. Initially, he had hoped that only Qin Yueshuang, Qin Xingho, and Qin Jiang would be able to pass the test. Other than Qin Xingho, who was Qin Yueshuang's biological younger brother, was also his biological son, Qin Jiang's strength was also one of the best among his peers in the family, second only to Qin Yueshuang. However, other than Qin Yueshuang, the other 2 had been eliminated. When he looked at the stage again, he saw the 2 Qin clan disciples standing there in a daze. The other was lying on the ground like a corpse, his life hanging by a thread. These 2 people had not even entered the body refining realm, let alone awakening their fate soul. Tang Ao's lips curled into a smile. He had done this on purpose. Other than Qin Yueshuang and her younger brother, he had eliminated the 4 strongest people, leaving only the 2 with the lowest cultivation and mediocre aptitude. When the time came, the expressions of the 3 sect elders would be very interesting to watch. Seeing this, he could not help but laugh out loud. Qin Yueshuang was not far from him. She could hear Tang Ao's laughter clearly, causing her body to stiffen and her knuckles to turn white. "Good job, Brother Tang," Nangong Shui shouted at the stage, breaking the silence of the crowd. The few people from the Qin family immediately looked at him and gritted their teeth, but they did not dare to attack him. Seeing this result, many of the spectators laughed in their hearts, as if they had vented their anger. Most of these people were young cultivators who had been cheated by the 3 sects because their spots were taken by the Qin family. This, looking at the field, the elder of the Heavenly Moon sect was momentarily speechless, not knowing what to choose. "Little friend Tang Ao, you have passed the assessment. Now, on behalf of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect, I officially invite you to join the sect." The 7th elder of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect suddenly spoke, his eyes shining. Tang Ao sneered in his heart. The other party was originally the one who looked down on him the most, but now he suddenly changed his expression and even took the initiative to invite him. He must have been shocked by the battle just now, and his 100-battle spear soul at level 5. If you choose Tang Ao, I, Qin Yueshuang, will give up the idea of joining the Heavenly Star sacred sect. Qin Yueshuang suddenly spoke, her voice full of magnetism with a hint of anger. The seventh elder of the Heavenly Star sacred sect was stunned, then smiled awkwardly at Tang Ao and said, "Little friend, you should make your own choice." Although Qin Yueshuang did not explicitly say it, the meaning of her words was already very clear. This was within everyone's expectations. One had to know that the Heavenly Star sacred sect was the second largest sect in the Eastern Territory, and its foundation was very strong. In the Eastern Territory, the number one sect was a mysterious sect. It was rumored that this sect had no more than 10 disciples in its history. Although it was a small sect, no one dared to look down on it. This was because every person who walked out of it was an invincible expert who could sweep away everything in their path. This mysterious sect rarely appeared in front of the world, and it was very rare to see them take the initiative to recruit disciples. Therefore, the sect that left the deepest impression on everyone was still the Heavenly Star sacred sect. Qin Yueshuang was a little unwilling, but she sighed helplessly. She looked at the unconscious Qin Xingho in the distance, then looked at the seventh elder and nodded slightly. Now that things had come to this, everyone understood. Little friend Tang Ao, although my 7-kill sect is ranked 3rd in the Eastern Territory, our foundation does not lose to anyone. Now, on behalf of the 7-kill sect, I formally invite you. Suddenly, the 3rd elder of the 7-kill sect spoke, his deep eyes shining brightly. He knew that there was no hope of getting Qin Yueshuang, so he turned his gaze to Tang Ao. At the same time, a few voices came from the crowd. They were all from some of the more famous sects in the Eastern Territory, and all of them wanted to recruit Tang Ao. Chapter 20. I have already integrated with the Destiny Stone and awakened the purple myrtle fate soul in a short period of time. Qin Yueshuang said calmly as she glanced at the representatives of all the sects present. Perhaps I am not a threat now, but I believe that with my current aptitude, no one will be able to defeat me after 10 years in the Heavenly Star sacred sect. Qin Yueshuang's expression was calm as she looked at the crowd. A surge of pure and holy energy erupted from her. Above her head, a purple crescent moon revolved slowly, spewing out rays of light that gathered at the crown of her head. Everyone was moved, especially those sects that had no hope in Qin Yueshuang and wanted to recruit Tang Ao. They began to hesitate at this moment. Although Qin Yueshuang did not say it clearly, there was a hint of threat in her words. Whoever dared to recruit Tang Ao would be her enemy. Indeed, the current Qin Yueshuang was not strong enough to threaten the strength of the sect. However, if she was allowed to grow in the Heavenly Star sacred sect after 10 years, her Heaven's Mandate purple myrtle Tao physique would completely mature and shine brilliantly. At that time, it would be a huge pressure for everyone. Even the elder of the 7-kill sect, who was ranked 3rd, fell silent. Anger rose in Tang Ao's heart. He did not expect Qin Yueshuang to be so scheming. Even now, she was still thinking of ways to stop him. In the distance, the 7th elder of the Heavenly Star sacred sect waved his sleeve, and several figures suddenly rushed out of the crowd. There were middle-aged men and old men. They flew to the battle stage at the same time and escorted Qin Yueshuang to the side of the 7th elder. Because of Qin Yueshuang's implied threat, the 7th elder was afraid that something unexpected would happen, so he hurriedly let several experts of the 7-kills sect hidden in the crowd protect her. The Qin family is indeed despicable and shameless. Nangong Shui constantly cursed, defending Tang Ao. However, Qin Yueshuang's words were too shocking. Just think about it. In the future, would anyone be willing to go against a violet myrtle heaven Tao physique that had attained mastery? Then these two young friends? The 3rd elder of the Heavenly Moon sect opened his mouth and awkwardly looked at the Qin clan disciple who was standing there stupidly and unconscious. This time, the major sects had a tacit understanding and did not make a sound. The aptitudes of these two people were simply too mediocre. You could find a bunch of them anywhere on the continent, so none of the sects were willing to take them in. At this time, Qin Wudao walked out. When he passed by Tang Ao, he sneered, then turned to the elders of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect and said, "Seniors, the strength of these two juniors is slightly lacking. In the future, when their cultivation has reached a certain level, they can be assessed again." With a way out, the elders nodded their heads in agreement. Even the seventh elder, who had originally agreed to join the Qin clan, was the same, although their condition was that they had to bring Qin Xingho along before they agreed to join the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect. However, Qin Xingho had already been eliminated, even though something had happened. The seventh elder could be considered to have fulfilled his promise. Looking at the two people on the stage, he really did not dare to bring them back. Otherwise, he would definitely be reprimanded by the first elder. Under Qin Wudao's call, a few disciples of the Qin clan walked out from the crowd, and one by one, they carried their seriously injured and unconscious companions away. Qin Yueshuang also did not say anything. Her expression was extremely calm, and the gaze she looked at Tang Ao carried a hint of ridicule. The assessment ended just like that, and the spectators gradually dispersed in the midst of their discussions. Qin Yueshuang was protected by the people of the Heavenly Star Sacred Sect the entire way back to the Qin clan. Although Tang Ao had passed the assessment, because of Qin Yueshuang's implied threat, in the end, no one dared to take him in. Hee. Tang Ao sneered, and his heart was filled with extreme anger. This woman was vicious and merciless. In order to achieve her goals, she would do anything. Now, she had actually succeeded in turning him into an abandoned disciple. In that case, it won't be too late for me to kill you after 10 years when you've grown up. Tang Ao's eyes overflowed with killing intent, and his knuckles were clenched so tightly that they were devoid of blood. Young friend, would you consider joining my unparalleled sect? My devil sect is not afraid of that little girl's threat. Would you like to join us? After waiting for Qin Yueshuang to leave, a few people found Tang Ao. They were all small sects in the East region, and they insisted on recruiting him. However, Tang Ao already had his own plans, and he rejected all of them one by one. Walking down the stage, he and Nangong Shui left together. I really did not expect that Qin Yueshuang, that little girl, would be so vicious. Nangong Shui constantly cursed along the way, seeking justice for Tang Ao. This time, even the two servants behind him nodded amiably, thinking that it was reasonable. "No matter, she is not enough to threaten me," Tang Ao said casually. He was no longer angry, and, on the contrary, there was a trace of a smile in his eyes. Nangong Shui was slightly stunned. She did not understand why he would say such a thing. In the restaurant, the two of them once again raised their cups and drank to their heart's content. They only got up after noon. "By the way, Brother Tang, I will be returning to my family in the afternoon. There are some matters that I need to deal with." "That's good. I will pay a visit to the Nangong family if I have the chance," Tang Ao said, and parted ways with Nangong Shui. Nangong Shui was a big fatty with a hearty personality. Although he looked burly, he was actually a very shrewd fellow. Tang Ao had a good impression of him, and he felt that he was a good friend. After sending Nangong Shui off, he walked straight to the city governor's mansion. Along the way, everyone was discussing about today's assessment. After what happened that day, some people in the city started to feel a little dissatisfied with the Qin family. Although they were one of the top families in Bluestone City, such a brazen action was indeed a little too much. Moreover, when they thought about how Tang Ao suddenly broke off the engagement, some people also started to suspect that the matter was not as simple as it seemed. It had been a week since the assessment. This matter had gradually faded from the people's mouths, and very few people mentioned it again. In the city governor's mansion, beside a crystal-clear lake, Tang Ao was sitting cross-legged on the grass. Since the end of the assessment, he had been quietly cultivating in the mansion. After 7 days of diligent cultivation, Not only had he completely recovered from the internal injuries he had suffered during the assessment, but his strength had also improved. However, he still had not stepped into the third heaven. Between the 7 great mystery realms, there were a total of 49 small realms, also known as the 49 heavens. The path of a cultivator was bumpy, and the difference in strength between each heaven was very large. Therefore, it was very difficult to break through each heaven, and the further one advanced, the harder it was to advance. There were millions of cultivators in the black-yellow continent, but there were very few who could truly transcend beauty. Many people might not be able to advance much in their lives, and that was the limit. Cultivation was already so difficult, not to mention awakening a life spirit. Although some people had a high realm, they could not awaken many life spirits. Some people could awaken many life spirits, but they were all low-level life spirits. Realm, life spirit. These 2 thresholds were like 2 insurmountable chasms, stopping too many people. Tang Ao's strength was not very stable previously. At times, he was at the 2nd heaven of the body-tempering realm, and at other times, he had 1 foot in the 3rd heaven, fluctuating up and down. But after these 7 days of cultivation, with the help of the ancient god moving heavens technique and some understanding from that big battle, Tang Ao's cultivation had completely stabilized. He was now a quasi-3rd-tier body refinement realm expert. Chapter 21. Tang Ao was filled with anticipation. The hidden jade and stone physique was about to awaken. Before long, he would be able to advance by leaps and bounds. He knew this physique better than anyone else. Once it matured, it could be said to be invincible. In 10 years, no one can beat you. Recalling Qin Yueshuang's words that day, Tang Ao couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Tossing aside the distracting thoughts in his heart, Tang Ao started to revolve the ancient god moving heaven technique again. The ancient god moving heaven technique's first level referred to moving one's qi and blood, which corresponded to the body refining realm. This was to achieve the control of one's qi and blood through breathing exercises. One could control one's qi and force to form the initial power of a martial artist. At this level, Tang Ao had already done very well, devouring the essence of heaven and earth to nourish his body, gathering qi to form an invisible force. During the test that day, this kind of ability was undoubtedly displayed. Tang Ao was wrapped in a thick, bone-piercing, killing aura. Before he even made a move, his aura had already suppressed his enemies. Qin Xingho and the others were also dumbfounded because of this. However, regarding the comprehension of this first level, Tang Ao felt that he was still lacking something. He didn't dare to advance rashly. He wanted to wait until he completely comprehended the endless profound meaning of this level before starting to cultivate the next level, moving the power of life. Young master, you've become stronger again. Uncle Fu came over. After seeing Tang Ao, his eyes lit up with joy. Tang Ao nodded and slowly stood up. He walked to Uncle Fu's side and said, "Uncle Fu, is there any news of father?" Hearing this, Uncle Fu's happy expression instantly changed. He said sadly, "Not yet. However, there is news that up until now, the old master's corpse has not been found. Therefore, as to what happened to the old master, we can't make a rash conclusion yet. We can only wait a little longer." Tang Ao responded unwillingly. He knew that Uncle Fu must have done his best to search for his father. If it wasn't for the fact that he was busy in the city and couldn't leave on his own, Uncle Fu would have personally gone to the outer realm. Seeing Uncle Fu's disappointed expression, Tang Ao's heart warmed slightly. Uncle Fu was the one who brought him up. At this moment, seeing this usually kind uncle with a gloomy and sad expression, Tang Ao didn't feel too good either. After a few words of condolences, an attendant hurriedly ran over. "Impudent! Don't you know that you're not allowed to enter or leave this place as you please?" Uncle Fu shouted at the servant. "Uncle Fu, not good. The dynasty's people are here." The servant hastily explained with a panicked expression. Tang Ao, and Uncle Fu were startled at the same time. Both Tang and Uncle and Fu and Uncle Tang Ao. Uncle Fu hurriedly said, "Lord Lu, my apologies. We are very busy in the city and have kept you waiting." The man was called Lu Jin, and he was a high-ranking official of the dynasty. When he saw Uncle Fu and Tang Ao, a trace of anger appeared in his eyes, and he said, "It seems like you are even busier than me." Uncle Fu laughed dryly and apologized profusely, and poured tea for them. Seeing Lu Jin and the disdainful looks on the faces of Lu Jin and the young men and women who came with him, Tang Ao felt disgusted. He ignored them and sat next to Uncle Fu with a cold expression. Uncle Fu asked, "Did Lord Lu come here for something?" After Lu Jin finished his tea, he hurriedly said, "Did you find Bluestone City Lord Tang Zhan?" "Not yet." Uncle Fu sighed. Lu Jin's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes lit up as he stared at Uncle Fu and Tang Ao. "Since that's the case, there's no one watching over Bluestone City now?" "Expert," Tang Ao exclaimed in his heart. With just a glance, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice house. On the other hand, Uncle Fu's expression was calm, but he did not dare to say anything because of Lu Jin's status. Can't even watch over a small city. What a bunch of trash. I heard that Tang Zhan's son is a piece of trash who doesn't know how to cultivate. Now that Tang Zhan is nowhere to be found, we can't leave a piece of trash to watch over Bluestone City, right? The young men and women next to Lu Jin suddenly spoke, their eyes filled with disdain. Tang Ao's expression turned cold, and he said, "Father went to the outer region for an important matter, and now he has been framed, and his fate is unknown. How dare you insult him? Yo, you talk big, so you're that piece of trash from Bluestone City." The two young women looked at Tang Ao and looked him up and down. Because they had just arrived at Bluestone City, they did not know that Tang Ao could already cultivate. "Since you don't like it, how about we have a match?" Tang Ao suddenly stood up with a cold gaze. The unruly attitude of these people made him extremely uncomfortable. In addition, their words had the intention of insulting his father, so Tang Ao was enraged. "Impudent!" Lu Jin suddenly shouted at Tang Ao, then waved his sleeve, signaling the young disciples to quiet down. "Lord Lu, I am truly sorry." Uncle Fu repeatedly apologized and stopped the impulsive Tang Ao. Lu Jin coldly snorted, then stood up and said, "Seeing that Tang Zhan has protected Bluestone City for many years and has many contributions, I will give you 3 years to grow. I'll give you 3 years of time to grow. When you reach the Origin Realm, you will take over your father's control of Bluestone City. But if you are still so mediocre, then I will take back your city lord's residence." After speaking, Lu Jin waved his sleeves, turned around, and left. The young men and women quickly followed him out of the hall. Lord Lu. Looking at Lu Jin's departing back, Uncle Fu wanted to say something but stopped. Grow to the Origin Realm in 3 years. This was simply a fantasy story. One had to know how difficult it was for a cultivator to advance. Some people could not even break through the first level of the Origin Realm after several years. Yet, Lu Jin wanted Tang Ao to become an expert of the Origin Realm in a short 3 years. That was simply unrealistic. Uncle Fu sighed. He was already over 60 years old. After dozens of years of hard work, he was only at the 8th level of the Origin Realm. In an instant, Tang Ao felt an unprecedented pressure to become an expert of the Origin Realm in 3 years of time. That was truly too difficult. Is the Tang family going to decline? Tang Ao unwillingly muttered in his heart, then turned around and left. Uncle Fu sighed and looked at Tang Ao's lonely back. At that moment, he did not know what to do. At the end, he also left. He started to gather people and search for Tang Zhan. Only after he returned could he stop the Tang family from declining. On the way, Tang Ao kept on thinking. His mind was in a mess. Unknowingly, he still arrived in front of his house. The instant he entered the door, he suddenly stopped. His expression changed, and he muttered to himself, "I can only give it my all." After thinking about it, Tang Ao decided to enter the great thousand world again. With a turn of his body, he arrived next to the lake behind the house and sat cross-legged. Tang Ao closed his eyes and relaxed his body and mind. Gradually, he entered a state of emptiness, a mental tour of the universe. Chapter 22. Tang Ao's divine sense was still exceptionally powerful. He quickly entered the state and looked around in all directions, searching for that trace of opportunity. Plop! All of a sudden, there seemed to be the sound of water dripping, echoing in this silent world. "It's here!" Tang Ao shouted in his heart. His divine sense locked onto the light in the void and directly entered. "I'm back!" Within the boundless world, Tang Ao's voice reverberated in all directions. He had a lingering look on his face as he looked around. Tang Ao did not stay for long. There was nothing he needed in the first heaven. He directly stepped out and entered the second heaven, third heaven, fourth heaven, fifth heaven. Once again, he arrived at the fifth heaven. Tang Ao looked around and had a strange feeling. The 100-battle spear soul was found here. Previously, when he was at the body-tempering realm, when he arrived at the fifth heaven, he clearly felt a formless pressure. This feeling directly hit the depths of his soul. Based on the situation at that time, Tang Ao could still enter the sixth heaven. However, there was a certain degree of risk. In the end, he did not act rashly. Instead, he stopped after obtaining the 100-battle spear soul. Now, Tang Ao was ready to take a step that he had never taken before. Looking ahead, Tang Ao directly strode forward. Sixth heaven, seventh heaven, eighth heaven. After passing through the third heaven, Tang Ao had already arrived at the eighth heaven. Now, he felt an unprecedented sense of oppression. Even his breathing was not smooth. It was as if there was a huge mountain pressing on his chest. Pooh! With every step Tang Ao takes, he will leave a deep footprint on the ground. This was not a feeling of pressure, but a real one. Tang Ao felt as if he was carrying a huge mountain on his back. Every step he took required all his strength. Cough, cough. Tang Ao coughed a few times under the pressure. He was about to reach his limit. With his divine sense injured, Tang Ao's body was also indirectly injured. He was quietly sitting cross-legged on the grass, and at this moment, a trace of dark red blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. A broken-bone saber. Suddenly, Tang Ao's eyes lit up as he looked at the saber that was placed nearby. This was a bone saber, forged from the toughest bones of vicious beasts. It was supposed to be a great killing weapon, but now it was riddled with holes. Cracks spread everywhere, and half of the blade had disappeared. Although it was very old, there was a faint light flickering on the bone blade. It was quite extraordinary. Tang Ao walked over with a happy expression. However, the moment he touched the bone blade, his expression turned to one of regret. Although it's extraordinary, it's lost its origin. Tang Ao sighed and turned to leave. Enduring the immense pressure, Tang Ao continued forward. Along the way, he saw too many extraordinary life souls. There were weapon type, natural type, and so on, all of which were very shocking. However, he ignored them one by one. In front of him, a mark floated in midair, flashing with a dazzling luster. Tang Ao was slightly surprised. He actually saw a nomological life soul. Although this kind of life soul was not rare in the boundless universe, it was still relatively rare compared to weapon-type life souls. This was a finger-long, flashing purplish-gold life soul. Before he even got close, Tang Ao could feel a natural law permeating the surroundings. If he felt it carefully, he would discover that this law contained a majestic life force. The flowers and plants growing around it were especially lush, like ordinary grass. Before he recovered from his surprise, Tang Ao suddenly noticed a red flower not far away from this nomological life soul. This red flower was the size of a palm, with a total of 7 petals. It was bright red and glistening, as if it was dyed with blood. The murderous aura it emitted was even stronger than the 100 battle spear soul, a very powerful natural type, life soul. Seeing two amazing life souls in a row, Tang Ao was even more surprised. Under normal circumstances, such powerful life souls were scattered everywhere. It was rare for two or more to be distributed together. After carefully observing for a moment, Tang Ao finally chose to give up. This was not the life soul he wanted. Cough, cough. The more he walked forward, the greater the pressure Tang Ao felt. In the form of his divine sense, cracks appeared on the surface of his body, revealing eerie white bones, but no blood flowed out. However, in the real world, Tang Ao's arms were dripping with blood. Crack! Now, with every step Tang Ao took, he felt a tearing pain in his legs, as if his bones were about to explode. He endured the pain and continued to move forward. However, along the way, he did not find a superior life soul. Although any one of the 8th heaven life souls was frightening enough, one had to know that there were supreme grade and supreme grade life souls among supreme grade. What Tang Ao was looking for now was a life soul that he felt was strong enough. It seems that I can only go to the 9th heaven, Tang Ao said, frowning slightly. He did not find a satisfactory life soul in the 7th heaven. However, he did not know if he could withstand the pressure of the 9th heaven. Inheriting the powerful soul from his previous life, Tang Ao's divine sense was different from that of ordinary people. If ordinary people were here, they would have been crushed into a pool of pus and blood by the laws of heaven and earth in the boundless universe. But he managed to persevere through all of it. Tang Ao was a little hesitant. Once he was obliterated in the boundless universe because he could not withstand the laws of heaven and earth, then his body would also suffer great damage. He would not be able to recover in a short time, and it might even affect his cultivation. However, when he thought that he was shouldering the heavy responsibility of the family's future, Tang Ao could only sigh helplessly. Looking ahead, he swept away all the distracting thoughts in his mind and focused 120% of his energy. Fight! Tang Ao said to himself, his voice firm and his face full of unyielding spirit. Enduring the devastation of the laws of heaven and earth, Tang Ao gritted his teeth and persevered. Puff! 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 As he was about to enter the 9th heaven, Tang Ao was about to reach his limit. The surface of his body cracked, and one of his arms suddenly collapsed, turning into specks of light and disappearing. Although it was a divine sense body, the feeling of losing an arm was like experiencing it personally. Tang Ao's face was a little ferocious, but he did not stop and continued to move forward with his seriously injured body. 9th heaven! As soon as he entered the 9th heaven, Tang Ao began to cough violently. His divine sense body began to become unstable and want to turn into nothingness. In reality, Tang Ao's body did not have a trace of consciousness, but he kept vomiting blood, and the grass in front of him was dyed red with blood. In the boundless universe, Tang Ao's divine sense body could be described as tragic. One of his arms had collapsed, and only half of one of his legs was left. The surface of his body was almost completely cracked, constantly overflowing with traces of white light, weakening his divine sense. I have to be fast. Tang Ao gritted his teeth and said. He could not hold on any longer. It took Tang Ao a full 5 minutes to walk a distance of more than 10 meters. At this moment, he was completely relying on perseverance and firm belief to support himself. 20 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters. After moving forward for more than 50 meters, Tang Ao had reached the maximum limit that he could bear. His divine sense was flickering and could break at any time. I can't give up, Tang Ao shouted angrily, and the ancient god moving sky technique circulated rapidly. Faint golden patterns could be seen clearly, shining brightly in his divine sense body. In an instant, Tang Ao's almost broken divine sense body solidified again. He took a step forward again and walked forward. That is a green lotus rooted on a rock. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.